Chapter 290, 100,000 Spirit Stones, The Change in Xiaoxia. After all, the young man in the red robe didn't seem like an ordinary Foundation establishment cultivator. One would think he couldn't be too poor. Buzz, 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 at this moment, the six-winged golden silkworm was flying around Lu Changsheng. Its wings, thin as cicadas, fluttered, emitting a bloodthirsty aura. Go ahead. Lu Changsheng naturally understood what the six-winged golden silkworm meant and chuckled lightly. He hadn't burned the young man in the red robe to ashes, precisely to leave the body for the six-winged golden silkworm. After all, this six-winged golden silkworm fed on blood. To it, the blood essence of a Foundation establishment great cultivator like the young man in the red robe was naturally a great tonic. Having received Lu Changsheng's permission, the six-winged golden silkworm immediately burrowed into the young man's body and began to feast greedily. Isn't this a bit too much like the practices of the demonic path? Lu Changsheng watched the actions of the six-winged golden silkworm and smacked his lips. Very soon, he shook his head and said, "But it's just resource utilization after all. If I didn't feed it to the six-winged golden silkworm, I'd have to burn it to ashes. Besides, this is far from what the demon path cultivators do. I read in a book before that some demonic path cultivators use any resource they can for cultivation, be it humans, demon beasts, or the souls of all living beings. Things like human skin books, white bone arrows, pools of blood and flesh, myriad soul banners, and even human emotions like joy, anger, and hatred can be used for cultivation." Lu Changsheng clicked his tongue in amazement. He had roughly read about the differences between the righteous path and the demonic path in books before. Although the descriptions weren't very detailed, he had a general idea. Demonic path cultivators are more extreme in their cultivation techniques and behaviors, showing less humanity for the sake of advancement. This consequently leads to some differences in the speed of cultivation and breaking through realms. But on the whole, there isn't much difference between cultivators of the righteous path and those of the demonic path. My cheap brother-in-law seems to have followed the demonic path, and I have no idea about his current situation or if he's still alive. Lu Changsheng suddenly remembered Chu Zenshan's brother, Chu Chang'e. After all these years, he wondered how his cheap brother-in-law, who had entered the demonic path, was faring. After all, life wasn't easy for demonic path cultivators in Jianghu country. Without further musing, Lu Changsheng began to check the storage bag. So many spirit stones, materials. Lu Changsheng immediately saw a pile of spirit stones and materials inside, and his face lit up with surprise. Even without counting in detail, he could tell at a glance that this was no small number of spirit stones. Among them were many lustrous middle-grade spirit stones. What's this? Lu Changsheng then looked at a crystal porcelain bottle. Inside was half a bottle of red crystal granules, resplendent like glazed glass. Just by the quality of the exquisite spirit bottle and the appearance of the crystals, Lu Changsheng could tell they were no mundane objects. Opening the porcelain bottle, he immediately felt an intense, scorching energy. Each grain of crystal shone with a precious light. Could this be something like the core formation spiritual object, heavenly fire glaze, as recorded in the books? If this thing really is the core formation spiritual object, heavenly fire glaze, then its value is at least 50 to 60,000 spirit stones. Lu Changsheng looked at the crystal porcelain bottle, his face filled with a smile, and he put it into his storage bag. A regular Foundation establishment spiritual object might cost 2,000 to 3,000 spirit stones. But for a core formation spiritual object, the price increases 20-fold. And they are priceless on the market. Lu Changsheng continued his inventory. Seeing ordinary materials and magic artifacts didn't stir much emotion in him. Red Phoenix True Scripture, a peripheral sect-level cultivation technique. Seems like there's something worthwhile after all, to possess a peripheral sect-level cultivation technique. However, the technique is incomplete, only cultivable to the core formation stage, but I can study the 2 secret techniques recorded inside later. Lu Chongsheng found several technique jade slips in the storage bag. After a brief glance, there were several high-grade cultivation techniques and the inheritance of 100 arts of cultivation. Only the Red Phoenix True Scripture notably piqued Lu Chongsheng's interest. Is this a magic treasure embryo? Lu Chongsheng saw a small black-red cauldron among the items, examining it in his hand. This small cauldron had only a rough outline of a cauldron shape. Neither the design nor the patterns were sculpted yet, resembling an unrefined embryo. But from inspecting the material of the small cauldron and the aura it emitted, even the worldly Lu Chongsheng faintly sensed that this was a magic treasure. This kind of appearance made Lu Chongsheng guess it was a magical treasure embryo. As far as Lu Chongsheng knew, most cultivators' life-bound magic treasures are made from some rare and precious materials, which they refine themselves. They then shape it into an embryo, and gradually nurture and imbue it into a fledgling form, eventually turning it into a magic treasure. This has an advantage, as one could control the fledgling form of the magic treasure in the late stage of foundation establishment. And by nurturing the magic treasure embryo well in advance, one could let the magic treasure take shape immediately upon reaching core formation, significantly increasing its power. Could it be that this young man in the red robe is a cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment? Otherwise, why would he have core formation spiritual objects and a magical treasure embryo? Lu Chongsheng glanced at the corpse that was being drained of blood by the six-winged golden silkworm and speculated. After all, how could an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator have such rare items? However, sifting through the spoils made Lu Chongsheng somewhat relieved. For he had also found in the red-robed young man's storage bag, 6 pieces of supreme talismans of the second rank, as well as heavenly thunder pearls, white bone arrows, and other treasures. It became clear that the latter actually had quite a few trump cards. If he had made a determined attempt to take their lives from the beginning of their encounter with him and Xianxia, neither she nor Lu Chongsheng would have had the chance to retaliate. There wouldn't have been any time to employ talisman treasures to suppress him. The same principle applies, even when a lion hunts a rabbit, it uses all its strength, Lu Chongsheng thought to himself. Otherwise, one might capsize in the gutter unexpectedly. Chapter 291, 100,000 Spirit Stones, The Change in Xianxia. Lu Chongsheng shook his head slightly, feeling a sigh. He stored the small cauldron away and continued the cleanup. Even if the cauldron was a magical treasure embryo, it wasn't of much use to him. It was merely a piece of valuable material. Besides possibly selling it in the future, it could also be used to cultivate the 100 refinements treasure body art. After all, a magical treasure embryo still counted as a magical treasure. It could be refined into his body. The cleaning process that followed didn't reveal any high-value items to surprise Lu Chongsheng. 128 middle-grade spirit stones. 3,894 lower-grade spirit stones. 1 suspected core formation spiritual object, 1 foundation establishment spiritual object. 1 magical treasure embryo, for spiritual artifacts, but one of them is worn, one is severely damaged, essentially scrapped, only suitable as waste material for the cultivation of the 100 refinements treasure body art. 2 superior magic artifacts, 3 ultimate magic artifacts, 1 flying boat, 1 heavenly thunder pearl, 1 first-grade lifespan extension pill, plus this pile of elixir medicines, talismans, and materials. The total value is over 100,000 spirit stones, right? After clearing everything up, Lu Chongsheng took a deep breath while looking at this batch of spoils, and after roughly calculating their value, he exhaled long and deep. This batch of spoils was indeed the greatest haul he had ever had. The biggest gain he achieved previously was the Ko family's 5 vicious beasts, and that was just over 10,000 spirit stones when added to Meng Xiaoquan's 2 foundation establishment spiritual objects. But now, the lone red-robed youth's spoils directly approached an enormous sum of 100,000. This wealth made Lu Chongsheng even more aware that this person was far from ordinary. From the earlier situation, he must have been targeting Xianxia, seeking to capture her alive. Lu Chongsheng looked at the still unconscious Xianxia, smacking his lips. He felt the matter was far from simple. Keep in mind, Xianxia is a disciple of a nascent soul immortal from Qingyun sect. Now a Foundation establishment great cultivator, knowing Xianxia's identity, still came to seize her, which made him feel the situation was complicated. Alas, the more entanglements there are, the greater the cause and effect. Lu Chongqing shook his head, packed away the items, and took out 7 middle-grade spirit stones to recharge his puppet. In the recent battle, this second-rank puppet hadn't suffered any damage. But the consumption of spirit stones was vast, nearly 7 out of the 10 stones had been used up. After returning this time, if I have the time, I could also create a few more puppets, Lu Chongqing thought to himself. Even the materials he had obtained were almost enough to create another second-rank puppet. But the next moment, Lu Chongqing shook his head. The urgent matter at hand is cultivation, otherwise, with my current mental spirit, even if I had several puppets, I wouldn't be able to control them simultaneously. During the recent battle, Lu Chongqing had also realized his shortcomings in this area. Operating a single puppet had already reached a limit during combat. If he were to control multiple puppets at the same time, it would be difficult to concentrate on other tasks. Most cultivation techniques for mental spirit require the emergence of divine sense first. It's not something that can be rushed, unless the system can draw a relevant cultivation technique for this aspect. Lu Chongqing let out a sigh, grabbing 2 lower-grade spirit stones and began to sit in meditation for healing and recovery. The next day, Lu Chongqing glanced at the still unconscious Xianxia. Seeing the effects of the healing talisman on her nearly dissipated, he took out another and used it. As the talisman flowed through Xianxia's body like dew from a lotus, she let out a soft moan and woke up. "Xiao Daoist, have you awoken?" Upon seeing Xianxia waking up, Lu Chongqing immediately inquired with concern. "Lu Daoist? Where are we, and where's the robber cultivator?" Xianxia sat up, looked around the crude cave, and asked. She didn't know if they had escaped or if she had been imprisoned by the red-robed youth. Under the power of our 2 talisman treasures, that robber cultivator was also at his limit. I, Lu, had no choice but to play my last card and barely managed to slay him, Lu Chongqing sighed, his words tinged with a mix of distress and relief. As he spoke, he returned Xianxia's tortoise shell, sword bead, cloud veil, and talisman treasures. He might be avaricious, but not to the extent of coveting these few things from the mother of his child. "You actually slew him?" Xianxia was somewhat incredulous. From their brief encounter before, she understood that the red-robed youth was not an ordinary Foundation establishment cultivator. He was at least at the middle stage of Foundation establishment. She and Lu Chongqing might have suppressed him with the help of the talisman treasure. But suppression and slaying were entirely different concepts. She was stunned for a moment. Then, her somewhat pale face broke into a smile that was unlike her usual cold demeanor, blooming like a snow lotus. "I didn't expect Lu Daoist to have hidden so deeply." She knew Lu Chongqing had secrets. But upon seeing the second-rank puppet, talisman treasure, and Lu Chongqing's cultivation level, she had already been amazed. Now, hearing that Lu Chongqing had slain the red-robed youth, her view of him was completely altered. Seeing Lu Chongqing slightly frown, Xianxia seemed to realize something, her lips lightly pursed as she said, "Don't worry, Lu Daoist, every cultivator has their secrets. In Rui County City, you already perceived that you were different from ordinary cultivators, certainly possessing fortunate secrets. So rest assured, you can swear on my Dao heart that I will absolutely not divulge anything about Lu Daoist to anyone." Xianxia, being a smart person and cultivating the supreme forgetful love technique, was enlightened in her Dao heart. Having said that, she promptly swore an oath, indicating she wouldn't mention this matter to a third party. "Xiao Daoist, there's no need for such formality, the situation isn't that serious." Lu Chongqing smiled, very satisfied with Xianxia's consideration. After all, revealing talisman treasures and cultivation levels like this was still somewhat risky. Chapter 292, 100,000 spirit stones, the change in Xianxia. _4 Reading N novel cool. M. Least he had been considering how to hint to Xianxia, but to his surprise, she brought it up herself. If it hadn't been for Lu Daoist, Shiyu would have been in danger this time. Previously, Lu Daoist helped Shiyu with her cultivation, and now he has risked his life to save her. Although he used his trump card to slay the robber cultivator, he must have suffered great losses himself, leaving Shiyu at a loss for how to repay him. Xiaoxia's gaze fell slightly as she spoke softly. During the battle with the robber cultivator, an inexplicable emotion had emerged in her heart. At this moment, these feelings were rapidly taking root in her heart. She did not use the supreme forgetful love technique to suppress these emotions, letting them fill her heart instead. Xiao Daoist, you are being too formal. Given the situation at the time, it would have been difficult for Lu to abandon Xiao Daoist and leave. Lu Changsheng's eyebrows raised slightly as he noticed a change in Xiaoxia's expression. Having interacted with her for such a long time, he knew that Xiaoxia's cool and ethereal demeanor would only disappear when she was cultivating. Once she stopped cultivating, she would quickly return to her usual cold and aloof appearance. But at this moment, Xiaoxia looked completely different from usual. It reminded Lu Changsheng of the lively and genuine, bright and charming Xiaoxia from 10 years ago. Furthermore, he keenly sensed that Xiaoxia was now referring to herself as Shiyu. Obviously, she felt much closer to him. He knew that experiencing life and death together, and a hero saving a beauty were things that greatly increased affections. As the words fell, Xiaoxia's delicate and incomparably beautiful face, slightly pale, took the initiative to move closer. Lu Changsheng immediately felt a warm, fragrant sweetness pass between their lips. He could smell an indescribably fresh and fragrant body scent in his nostrils. Suddenly, the two were kissing each other. This time, the fairy was very proactive. It gave Lu Changsheng a taste of something different. A moment later, Lu Changsheng let go of the warm and fragrant soft jade in his arms. After all, it wasn't good to get worked up in the wilderness. And there was still one matter to take care of. That was, the red-robed youth was clearly targeting Xiaoxia, and it remained to be seen whether they had other tricks up their sleeve to cause trouble. Xiao Daoist, that robber cultivator clearly came after you. Under such circumstances, Lu Changsheng shared his thoughts. They must be targeting me, intending to use me against my master. Xiaoxia nodded her head with a deep look in her eyes, aware of this issue as well. There's no time to delay. Shiyu will go back and report this matter to the master. The matter of cultivation can only be set aside for now. I will return to Jianghu Mountain to find Lu Daoist after I've dealt with this. Xiaoxia pursed her lips and spoke softly. She also knew that she was in a dangerous situation at the moment. Moreover, being with Lu Changsheng not only put herself in danger but could also involve him. The next time they encountered such an incident, they might not be so lucky. All right, do you need me to send you? Lu Changsheng nodded. He felt that with the support of a backer, one should naturally turn to that support in such situations. Shiyu can go back by herself. Lu Daoist, you must be preparing for foundation establishment, right? Xiaoxia asked. I still need to polish my skills for several more years before preparing for the foundation establishment. At this time, Lu Changsheng did not conceal too much. It had been less than a year since his breakthrough to the 9th level of energy refinement, and he needed several more years of cultivating his spiritual power before he could prepare for foundation establishment. All right, once Shiyu has dealt with the matter, I will return to assist Lu Lang with his foundation establishment. Xiaoxia smiled sweetly, her enchanting voice containing a hint of sweetness. After finishing her words, she kissed Lu Changsheng again. Chapter 293, The Master and Apprentice Arrive Together. _1, Suddenly So Proactive. Reading N novel cool. M. Least watching Xiaoxia riding away on the immortal crane, with her clothes fluttering and full of immortal aura, Lu Changsheng touched his nose. He could still faintly smell the rich fragrance at his fingertips. He could clearly feel the change in Xianxia after she woke up from her fainting spell. Not only was her tone and demeanor no longer cold, but she also became much more proactive. This feeling was quite pleasant. Phew, I should head back too. This trip has also shown me the gap between qi refinement and foundation establishment. I need to reach foundation establishment as soon as possible. Otherwise, without a talisman treasure or treasure bones, if I encounter another foundation building great cultivator, it would be troublesome. Lu Changsheng exhaled a long breath and rubbed his still faintly aching sternum. That strike from the treasure bones meant he would need to recuperate for a while before he could fully recover. But what exactly did Xianxia mean when she said she would help me with foundation establishment? Lu Changsheng thought back to Xianxia offering to help him with his foundation establishment. But when he asked about it, Xianxia remained silent and mysteriously indicated it would be a surprise for him. Lu Changsheng speculated in his heart, could it be a foundation establishment elixir or perhaps some kind of secret technique that assists with foundation establishment? But I already have a foundation establishment elixir, and with my current situation, as long as I reach qi refinement perfection, I have about a 90% chance of achieving foundation establishment. How else could she help? 99%? Lu Changsheng smacked his lips and didn't think further. After causing the cave to collapse and dealing with the scene, he rode the iron feather eagle and left. 2 days later, Lu Changsheng safely returned to Jianghu mountain. His wife Lu Miaoyun, Lu Miaohuan, and several other women asked him why he had stayed in the secular world for so long. Especially Lu Miaohuan, who was now about to give birth. Seeing that Lu Changsheng had not yet returned, she was so distressed that she needed a lot of comforting from him. He also explained why his trip took so long. After the gathering, a good friend was leaving the mountain to gain experience, but had nowhere to go, so he accompanied him for a while. Of course, he did not go into detail about how he provided the accompaniment. After all, discussing such matters of helping others in their cultivation with his wife felt a bit strange to Lu Changsheng. Especially since the second young mistress was about to give birth. Hearing this, Lu Miaohuan and Chu Zhenzhen didn't think much of it. But Lu Miaoyun felt a strange sense of oddness when she heard that the Qingyun sect disciple who accompanied her husband was a woman. She always felt that her husband's popularity with women was a bit too good. Now, whenever she saw any woman with her husband, she couldn't help but suspect something might happen. However, she didn't say anything about it. She simply suggested that Lu Changsheng should cultivate a good relationship with Xianxia. After all, the cultivation world is also about personal connections and worldly wisdom. Being able to maintain a good relationship with an inner sect disciple of the Qingyun sect was also a good thing. Meanwhile, on the other side, Xianxia had also returned to the Qingyun sect. Senior Sister Xiao. Junior Sister Xiao. Senior Sister Shiyu. Along the way, many Qingyun sect disciples greeted Xianxia respectfully, paying respects or calling out to her. Xianxia was not only beautiful and talented, but she was also a disciple of the peak master of Kaiyun Peak, a nascent soul immortal. Thus, she had a wide reputation within the Qingyun sect. She was the goddess in many disciples' hearts and was well liked. However, Xianxia was also known for her aloof and cold demeanor. Many talented disciples of the Qingyun sect sought her, but all were met with rejection. Xianxia, with her cool and indifferent demeanor, was like the distant moon high above, unapproachable. But she still retained her previous habit of responding simply to others' greetings. This was another reason many disciples liked her. Xianxia did not delay much, and upon entering the Qingyun sect, she flew swiftly towards Kaiyun Peak on her Cloud Veil magic artifact. Arriving at the palace halls at the peak, she stood before a grand hall. Master. Xianxia paid her respects in front of the great hall. The doors opened with a bang. Shiyu, why have you returned? Has something happened? Yun Wanshang's voice arose. She knew that Xiaoxia's trip down the mountain for her cultivation experience was to experience the trial of love and to find an opportunity for a breakthrough. Thus, without anything major, she would not return so soon. But now Xiaoxia had come back so quickly, and with her aura somewhat disordered, it made her realize that something must have happened. Reporting to Master, Xiaoxia walked into the great hall and related the encounter with the youth in red. However, she chose to conceal specific details. She changed the account of killing into escaping. After all, Qi refinement cultivators slaying a foundation-building great cultivator was truly astonishing. Especially since the red-robed youth was not a regular foundation establishment cultivator, her master might even know him. Yun Wanshang's brow furrowed sharply as she listened, and a chill enveloped her heavenly features. She had suspected that someone was intentionally meddling when Xiaoxia had been attacked by Red Luan, the old demon, on her way back with the purple spirit liquid. Now that her disciple, Xiaoxia, had been targeted so soon after leaving for her cultivation experience, and the attacker was targeting Xiaoxia and Nu Yun Wanshang, it confirmed her suspicion that someone was targeting her from the shadows. This led her to believe that this person was very likely within the Qingyun sect itself. Shiyu, don't worry, leave this matter to me to handle, said Yun Wanshang, suppressing the anger in her heart. Yes, Master, responded Xiaoxia with a nod. Then her mouth curved slightly as she said, Master, I have found the opportunity for a breakthrough on this trip down the mountain. What? Yun Wanshang was taken aback, somewhat astonished. She hadn't expected that Xiaoxia would find her breakthrough opportunity just a little over a month since she had descended the mountain. She knew that the trial of the supreme forgetful love technique was not easy to overcome. Especially since others who practice this technique usually experience the trial of love at the beginning, amidst the turmoil of the world, before they continued with their cultivation. Chapter 294, The Master and Apprentice Arrive Together. Because of the red dust elixir, Xiaoxia had first cultivated the supreme forgetful love technique. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise now, even if she were to experience the trials of love again, it would be more difficult for her than for ordinary people. Because the supreme forgetful love technique allowed Xiaoxia to remain unfettered and undisturbed by emotions, she found it extremely difficult to be moved by them. She locked gazes with the calm eyes of Xiaoxia. A moment later, Yun Wanshang spoke, Shiyu, are you sure about this? Love is unfathomable, unknowable in its beginning, resting place, bond, solution, track, or end, which makes this love calamity not so easy to overcome. You invest deep feelings, yet you are naive about love, likely to become deeply entrapped. Yun Wanshang voiced such words. Love is unknowable in its origin, indescribable, beyond words. This was her own realization. Now that her disciple was cultivating the supreme forgetful love technique and wished to transcend the love trial, it inevitably worried her as a master. Initially, under Xiaoxia's persistence, she had agreed to a period of 3 years, secretly hoping that Xiaoxia would give up. Master, Shiyu has made up her mind. Xiaoxia's eyes were as clear as autumn waters under the moonlight, and she spoke softly. Her voice was calm, yet resolute. In these days, she had come to understand the nature of emotions and the meaning behind the supreme forgetful love. But her heart, set on pursuing the Tao and content with dying in the evening after hearing it in the morning, had not a single thought of surrender. It seems you have made up your mind, I won't dissuade you any further, said the master. Yun Wanshang looked at Xiaoxia and sighed softly. She knew that once her disciple made a decision, she would not easily change her mind. At the same time, she felt a tremendous sense of relief. She was heartened to see such a strong commitment to the Tao in her disciple. After all, cultivation isn't just about innate talent. It's also about a person's character, temperament, mindset, and understanding, among other things. She had taken on Xiaoxia as a disciple, not just for her talent but also for her temperament and comprehension. Since Xiaoxia spoke in such a manner, she chose to believe in her disciple. To believe she could pierce through the false and truly cultivate the supreme forgetful love. You've spoken of this matter, but is there something else you wish to tell your master? Yun Wansheng's face broke into a smile, and she reached out to touch Xiaoxia's head. She sensed that the other had more to say. Master, the opportunity for my breakthrough lies in an old friend of mine, and it was thanks to his help that Shiyu was able to escape, so, Shiyu wishes to request Master to refine a golden crow elixir. Xiaoxia pursed her lips and spoke. Golden crow elixir. Yun Wansheng's gaze sharpened upon hearing this. She immediately guessed what her disciple wanted to do. Golden crow elixir, second-rank top-grade elixir medicines. Containing a strand of great sun essence. Immensely beneficial for those with yang constitutions in their cultivation. And this golden crow elixir has another effect: the essence within, coupled with Xiaoxia's moonlight spirit body, could enhance each other's effect. If it is used during foundation establishment, there's a chance to build the Sun-Moon Dao foundation. However, to reach this step, one must engage in dual cultivation with a partner. Please grant me this, Master, Xiaoxia said as she knelt before her silent master. Oh, my foolish child, Yun Wansheng sighed. She helped Xiaoxia up and said, the person owes you a debt of enlightenment and has also saved your life. Naturally, you must repay this kindness. But afterwards, can you truly break through all this? Yun Wansheng questioned. To forget with the supreme forgetful love technique, one must experience the trial of love. The deeper the love trial, the better the effect after shattering illusions. But Xiaoxia's situation also made her worry that her disciple might get lost in it. Master, I can, Xiaoxia assured, her cool and detached face showing a gentle smile. All right, you should go back and rest. I will ask Elder Yun to refine the elixir, and he'll inform you once it is ready. Yun Wansheng touched Xiaoxia's head again, her voice tinged with pity. In this era, the status of a master-disciple relationship was extraordinary. She regarded Xiaoxia almost as her own daughter. Seeing Xiaoxia like this naturally left her feeling incredibly complex. Yes, Master, Shiyu will take her leave now. Xiaoxia bowed and withdrew. After Xiaoxia left the hall, Yun Wansheng's expression turned indifferent. Then she transformed into a rainbow light and arrived at Qiyang Peak, a majestic golden magical sword appearing in her hand. Boom! With magical sword in hand, Yun Wansheng slashed fiercely towards the peak's palace. Countless golden runes flashed, causing a golden divine thunder to strike down from the clear skies, alongside her sword. Yun Wansheng, what are you doing? Inside Qiyang Peak, an authoritative and resounding voice spoke out. 9 red fire dragons soared into the sky, forming a barrier to block the sword. What's going on? It's the Kaiyun Peak Master. What is the Kaiyun Peak Master doing, suddenly attacking our Qiyang Peak? Many disciples of Qiyang Peak suddenly looked up, staring in shock and confusion at the scene unfolding before them. Song Qingji, show yourself. Yun Wansheng held her magical sword aloof, her expression unfazed. Kaiyun junior sister, Qingji is in seclusion. What do you want from her? A middle-aged man donning a red magical robe with a dignified face emerged from Qiyang Peak. My disciple was attacked outside, and within the Qingyun sect, only your Dao partner, Song Qingji, has borne a grudge against me since the core formation affair. Her nature is dark, and she always likes to engage in sly tricks behind the scenes, so she must be involved in this matter, Yun Wansheng declared coldly. Kaiyun junior sister, you can't just make such accusations. For the past days, Qingji has been in seclusion. How could she have acted against your disciple? The true person of Qiyang spoke with a less than pleased expression, his voice grave. Chapter 295, The Master and Apprentice arrived together. And at this moment, another divine rainbow flew in, landing on Qiyang Peak and looking towards the 2 nascent soul immortals. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Li seeing the newcomer, Yun Wansheng also sheathed her magical sword. Looking at Qiang Immortal, she said coldly, "Whether it is or not, brother Qiang, you could ask Song Qingji. If my disciple encounters any more accidents, then this matter cannot be separated from you and your Qiang peak. When that happens, don't blame me for being impolite." After Yun Wanshang had finished speaking, she turned and left without looking back, transforming into a rainbow light and returning to Kaiyun Peak, leaving behind the disciples of Qiang Peak somewhat dumbfounded. Although among them, some had heard about the grudge between their peak's master's wife and the master of Kaiyun Peak. But that was just what they had heard, rumors. Today's incident let them know that these rumors were true. However, they dared not discuss such matters. "Qiang junior brother, you also know Kaiyun's temperament. You can also ask junior sister Song about this. If it has nothing to do with junior sister Song, then just clear things up with her when the time comes," said the Qingyun sect leader after seeing Yun Wanshang depart. "Sect leader brother, how could Qingji possibly do such a thing, and moreover, Qingji has been in seclusion these past few days," said Qiang Immortal, cupping his hands. That's good then," replied the Qingyun sect leader, not saying more. He transformed into a divine rainbow and departed. Straight away, Qiang Immortal's face turned somewhat somber as he approached a grand and luxurious hall. Inside the hall, on the bed, lay a woman around 30, her black silky hair coiled into a bun, wearing a green Daoist robe, lying on her side while holding an ancient scroll. "Qingji, has the matter regarding Yun Wanshang's disciple anything to do with you?" Qiang Immortal asked the woman on the bed, speaking gravely. "Could it be that, in your heart, I would do such a thing?" The woman in green put down the scroll and sat up slightly, looking at her Dao companion. "I hope not," the Qiang Immortal sighed helplessly as he looked at his Dao companion's expression. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Since returning to Qingzhou Mountain, Lu Chongsheng had kept a low profile. Other than 2 trips to the Red Leaf Valley Market, he seldom left the house. He focused on his cultivation, talisman making, and spending time with his wives. Half a month after returning, the second mistress gave birth to her second child. It was a boy. Fortunately, the child also possessed a spiritual root. But not as good as Lu Qingshan. It was only a 7th grade spiritual root. Nevertheless, Lu Chongsheng felt very satisfied. He could not help but wonder if the reason Lu Miaohuan's children had spiritual roots both times was related to her consistently good nutrition. After all, there were such mystical sayings in the cultivation world. And during Lu Miaohuan's pregnancy, Lu Yuanding always provided various nutritious supplements. One day, in the practice room. "Who?" Lu Chongsheng sat cross-legged, exhaling lightly as he looked at the black-red small cauldron floating in front of him. This black-red small cauldron was the magic artifact embryo he had acquired from the red-robed youth. Although this magic artifact embryo was precious and worth quite a bit of money, he found selling it troublesome and preferred to use it to enhance his strength. Thus, he had spent the time he would have used to refine the 9-treasure jade rui on this magic artifact embryo. Now, at last, the refinement was complete, and it could be condensed into his body. "I will condense this magic artifact embryo into the bones of my hand," Lu Chongsheng decided as he looked at his right hand, already having chosen the spot for condensation. After all, the skull and spine were relatively dangerous and problematic, not to be considered for the moment, and with the black dragon magical bead in his sternum, only the limbs were left to choose from. Sirich. Without further thought, Lu Chongsheng activated the 100 Refinements treasure body art, causing treasure light to flow through his palm, as if staining it gold. Under the concentration of spiritual power, the black-red small cauldron began to integrate bit by bit with his palm. Just like that, time trickled by, and the entire small cauldron completely integrated into Lu Chongsheng's palm, solidifying within his hand bones. On the back of his hand, the pattern of a small cauldron emerged. At the same time, a mighty and overwhelming power began to wash over Lu Chongsheng's flesh, meridians, and bones. This allowed Lu Changsheng's nearly breakthrough 100 refinements treasure body art to immediately advance under the force of this magic artifact embryo. Boom boom boom. Sounds reminiscent of mighty rivers surging and rushing echoed within Lu Changsheng. The noise grew clearer and more resonant, resembling a divine blacksmith forging a powerful weapon, strong and sonorous. Lu Changsheng's physique shone brighter and brighter, as if a layer of golden film were flowing over his skin, bursting forth with a dazzling radiance like a blood rainbow. After a long while, the divine light within Lu Changsheng's body gradually receded, revealing his flawless and robust muscular frame. 100 refinements treasure body art, 3rd level. Lu Changsheng felt the immense power within him, his lips curved upwards in a smile. Just as I suspected, integrating the second magic artifact into my body was less effective, which is likely because it's only a magic artifact embryo. However, it's still quite good. With the black dragon magical bead and this magic artifact embryo constantly nurturing and refining my body, I estimate that within 10 years, my 100 refinements treasure body art will break through to the 4th level. Moreover, once I have finished refining the 9 treasure jade rui, this speed will increase even further. Lu Changsheng's face was filled with joy as he looked at the small cauldron pattern on his hand. With a slight movement of his mental spirit, the pattern vanished from sight. He then took out his green-face sword from his storage bag and lightly slashed his arm with it twice. Seeing no effect, he chopped with more force, another 2 times. Noticing only faint white marks and red welts, Lu Changsheng couldn't help but nod in satisfaction. My physical body is comparable to a high-grade magic artifact. With my physical strength alone, I can now easily slay energy refinement middle-stage cultivators, and even some in the late stage, right? Lu Changsheng stored away the green-face sword, quite pleased with his physical condition. He knew his fist was strong enough to clash head-on with middle-grade magic artifacts. As for high-grade magic artifacts, Lu Changsheng believed there was no need. After all, harming one's own flesh and blood was truly inadvisable. And he had cultivated the 100 refinements treasure body art for many years but had never used it to directly confront others, treating it more like physical training. It's been so long, I wonder how Xianxia is doing now. Lu Changsheng couldn't help but think of Xianxia. After all, she had said that after resolving her matters at Qingyun sect, she would return to cultivate with him. 3 months had passed by now. Meanwhile, at Qingyun sect, Shiyu, this is the golden crow elixir. Yun Wanshang handed a porcelain bottle to Xianxia. Thank you, master. Upon hearing this, Xianxia revealed a hint of joy. She then opened the bottle and glanced inside. Immediately, she saw a dazzling elixir that looked like a flame alight. It was the golden crow elixir indeed. When do you plan to descend the mountain? Yun Wanshang inquired. She knew that Xianxia had stayed on Kaiyun Peak all these days, waiting for the golden crow elixir to be ready. Master, I plan to leave the mountain today. Xianxia pressed her lips together, her cool and aloof expression softening a little. Good, if you encounter any emergencies, send word to your master immediately. Yun Wanshang sighed softly as she looked at her disciple's demeanor. Yes, master. Xiaoxia's face broke into a slight smile. She then bowed deeply and walked out of the grand hall, taking flight on her cloud veil magic artifact and leaving Qingyun sect. Next, she rode a white crane, heading towards Qingzhou mountain. Not long after Xiaoxia left, Yun Wanshang stood quietly by the railing of her palace. Her heart couldn't help but worry about Xiaoxia. After all, the matter of the emotional tribulation greatly concerned her disciple's future and commanded her attention. Soon after, Yun Wanshang gazed in the direction Xiaoxia had gone and transformed into a rainbow of light that also departed from Qingyun sect. Chapter 296, Yun Wanshang, how could it be him? _1 Red Leaf Valley Market. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, least the streets were sparsely populated with pedestrians, hardly bustling with activity. Lu Changsheng carried his daughter Lu Qingzhu while strolling through the market with his wife, Lu Miaoge. Little Bamboo, do you like this? Lu Miaoge, her hair piled up high, her features delicate and gentle, held up a small toy to ask her daughter. Oh. Lu Qingzhu gave it a few glances before responding. It seems you don't like it. Lu Changsheng, observing his daughter's reaction, said with a smile. The little girl was already 2 years old. She was as cute as a button, extremely adorable. It's just that she had a somewhat simple and straightforward personality. She was not fussy or noisy, quiet, and well-behaved. Even when Lu Changsheng pinched her lightly for no reason, she would just look up at him, her father, with a wronged expression. She was entirely different from the mischievous and active Lu Qingshan. Isn't that Miss Lu Miaoge? Your child has grown so big already. No wonder Mr. Lu, the talisman master, is so devoted to the Lu family. It seems your family's investments are quite substantial. At this moment, a group of men and women approached from not far away. One of the young men in blue robes, upon seeing Lu Changsheng and Lu Miaoge, had a smirk and spoke teasingly. Third young master, are we that familiar with you? Lu Changsheng turned his head, his expression impassive, and spoke indifferently. This young man in blue robes was none other than Yuan, the third young master of the Yu family, who had once tried to recruit him at the Nine Dragons market. As for the third young master of the Yu family, he had no favorable impression of him. Or rather, he had no favorable impression of the entire Yu family. After all, based on his conjecture, the assaults on Lu Miaoge and himself during his return trip were very likely orchestrated by the Yu family. When the third young master of the Yu family had come to the Nine Dragons market to recruit him, the incident might have been related to them. All these matters were engraved in his memory. Once his strength was sufficient, he would settle these accounts. Humph. Yuan saw that Lu Changsheng gave him no regard and his expression darkened. But he did nothing more than give a cold snort. After all, the Red Leaf Valley Market was considered his family's marketplace. It was still in its initial phase of development. He wouldn't start a conflict within the market and risk tarnishing its reputation. Otherwise, faced with Lu Changsheng's slight, he would not have let it go so easily. Lu Changsheng, after Yuan left, he glanced back at Lu Changsheng once more. He knew in his heart that Lu Changsheng was no simple character. The man had saved Lu Miaoge before, and he had come out unscathed after the assassination attempts he had ordered. During the battle between the Lu and Bai families that led to the downfall of Red Leaf Valley, Changsheng played a significant role. He was aware that the latter was not someone easy to handle. Changsheng, you should still be careful with the Yu family, Lu Miaoge said softly to Lu Changsheng. Although the Lu, Bai, Zheng, and Yu families had collaborated to establish the Red Leaf Valley market, the relations among these four families had not significantly improved. After all, the incident in Red Leaf Valley had been quite unpleasant. Sister Miaoge, I know, Lu Changsheng nodded in response. He was now a core member of the Lu family and was privy to some of the intricacies involved. After continuing their shopping for a while, the couple headed back to the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop with their daughter. As for Lu Changsheng's own Peace Talisman Hall, he would stop by monthly to check the accounts and replenish talismans. If he was too busy, he would let Lu Miaoge help out. Mainly because the foot traffic in Red Leaf Valley Market was still rather average. The monthly income primarily depended on his few supreme talismans, and there was not much to look into. Little Bamboo, haven't you fallen asleep yet? Upon returning to the third floor of the spiritual talisman shop, Lu Changsheng, thinking his daughter had fallen asleep in his arms, looked down to find a pair of bright eyes gazing back. Daddy, I'm not sleepy, Lu Qingzhu said in her baby voice. The little head nestled in Lu Changsheng's arms, and her tender face gently rubbed against him. Are you hungry, then? Looking at his daughter's adorable manner, Lu Changsheng felt immense satisfaction and love, giving her milky cheek a playful nibble. Oh. The little girl pondered briefly and then nodded with her lips pursed. You're hungry and you don't say it yourself, you little simpleton, Lu Chongqing chuckled as he heard her. He immediately took out a milk bottle and a jade bottle from the storage bag. They contained spiritual dew, spiritual honey, and milk from spiritual beasts. As a father to over 100 children, he had long acquired a storage bag specifically for storing food for the kids. After mixing the milk, Lu Chongqing skillfully fed his child. Children of this age could already hold the milk bottle by themselves. Lu Miaoge, watching Lu Chongqing feed their child, lingered with a gentle expression for a moment before heading to the talisman room to make talismans. She had successfully created a supreme talisman last year. But her success rate remained low. Creating supreme talismans was still a losing business. Lu Chongqing naturally provided guidance in talisman crafting as well, but the effectiveness of such teachings was limited, it still depended on the individual. This made Lu Chongqing realize that teaching the children talisman making and puppetry would be somewhat difficult. You could invest heavily in the early stages, but without natural talent in these areas, it was hard to cultivate skills. As Lu Chongqing watched his daughter quietly drinking milk, he suddenly sensed something. He took out a talisman from his storage bag. Faint spiritual light flowed across the surface of the talisman. Shiyu has arrived at the Red Leaf Valley Market, he noted. This was a sensing talisman. Whenever a corresponding communication talisman was activated, the sensing talisman would perceive it. However, this was only a first-grade sensing talisman, its range of sensing was limited. Therefore, Lu Chongqing immediately knew that Xianxia had come to the Red Leaf Valley Market. Right away, he went to the talisman room, informed Lu Miaoge, who was making talismans, that he needed to step out, then carried his daughter toward the entrance of the Red Leaf Valley Market. A quarter of an hour later, Lu Chongqing arrived at the market exit. He immediately saw Xianxia not far away, clad in a white dress, her tall and graceful figure exuding a cold and lofty air. Chapter 297, Yun Wansheng, How Could It Be Him? Shiyu. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise Lu Chongqing stepped forward, calling out to Xianxia. When they had parted last, Xianxia had suggested they address each other as fellow Daoists, creating a sense of estrangement. Therefore, it was only natural that their form of address had changed. Chongqing. Upon seeing Lu Chongqing, Xianxia, with her cold, proud features, immediately revealed a gentle look in her calm and indifferent beautiful eyes, and the corners of her mouth also curled up. Is this also your daughter? Xianxia, seeing the baby bottle in the arms of Lu Chongqing who was holding Lu Qingzhu, asked. She knew that Lu Chongqing had many wives and children. But she hadn't expected that Lu Chongqing would come to the marketplace while also holding a child. It left her really not knowing what to say. She could only say that Lu Chongqing truly liked children. Yes, this is my daughter Lu Qingzhu. Little Zhuer, this is your auntie Shiyu. Lu Chongqing introduced them to each other with a candid expression. Hee, auntie. The little girl, clutching her baby bottle, paused, then spoke in a babyish voice. In Qingzhu Mountain, with so many lady mothers, she had learned to call out a bit. But her pronunciation was still not clear. Ah, what a cutie. Xianxia looked at the little girl drinking her milk and showed a faint smile on her face. One reason was that the child was indeed adorable. The other was love for the house and its crow. Straight away, the two of them walked into the Red Leaf Valley Marketplace, laughing and talking. However, as the two chatted, is it him? A hidden figure, camouflaged in the void, upon seeing Lu Chongqing, revealed expressions of shock, astonishment, embarrassment, anger, and disbelief in her dreamlike beautiful eyes. It was like when Duan Yu learned that the person he loved, unexpectedly, was his own half-sister from the same father but different mothers. But in the end, he was not the child of his biological father, instead born from his mother's secret affair. Shiyu's destined lover in her emotional tribulation, how could it be him? Yun Wansheng stood quietly in mid-air, wearing a colorful dress, her expression incredibly shocked, her feelings indescribably complex. Her heart felt as if a bottle of mixed emotions had been overturned. After Xianxia had left, she had been somewhat worried about her. She also wanted to see for herself the person her pupil had chosen for her emotional tribulation. After all, this tribulation could significantly influence her disciple's future. As a teacher, she naturally had to take a good care of her. Therefore, she had followed Xianxia all the way here, ready to keep an eye on things. But she had never imagined that her pupil's lover would turn out to be the qi refinement cultivator with whom she had had a one-night stand. This left her brain in chaos, overwhelmed with shock, astonishment, embarrassment, anger, and even murderous thoughts, stunned to the core. A moment later, truly, fate makes fools of us all. Yun Wanshang watched the receding figures, sighed helplessly and bitterly, a wry smile on her face. Under the surge of emotions just now, she had even thought of slaying Lu Changsheng with a single sword stroke. But recalling the past incident, she couldn't really blame Lu Changsheng. The cause lay with her. Moreover, she could not possibly do such a thing. Lu Changsheng was merely together with Xianxia. What reason did she have to kill him for that? Furthermore, judging by Xiaoxia's demeanor and attitude towards Lu Changsheng, it was clear that she had developed feelings. Love is born unknowingly. Once the emotional tribulation was triggered, the rest was up to Xiaoxia herself to overcome. If she, in a fit of rage, were to kill Lu Changsheng, it would be like severing her own pupil's future. Sigh. Yun Wanshang sighed deeply once again. Her emotions were complicated beyond words. She had thought that if Lu Changsheng were promising enough to reach the foundation establishment within 20 to 30 years, she might give him a chance to bring him to the Qingyun sect for cultivation. Forming a true elixir would naturally be difficult, hopeless even. But with her help and nurture, forming a false core could be feasible. In such a case, the man would be worthy of being her partner. Later, by leveraging the spirit-nurturing energy she left within Lu Changsheng, a dual cultivation between them was not outside the realm of advancement. But now, upon seeing that Lu Changsheng had become Xiaoxia's destined lover in her emotional tribulation, she could only abandon such thoughts and plans. Even if Xiaoxia were to cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique and forget this romance after passing her emotional tribulation, as a teacher, she could no longer entertain such notions. Otherwise, what would be the propriety in sharing a husband between master and pupil? She, Yun Wanshang, being a nascent soul immortal, must she not care for her own dignity? But looking at him just now, with his child, has he given up on cultivation? Yun Wanshang thought of how Lu Changsheng had been holding a child and her eyebrows slightly furrowed. If cultivators could preserve their essential purity, not breaking their primordial yin and yang, it would provide some aid in their early cultivation. This is why most young cultivators would not consider marriage. He is but an 8th grade spiritual root. Even if he had an opportunity back then and had a breakthrough in cultivation level with me, the possibility for him to reach foundation establishment is extremely slim. Moreover, Shiyu visited Qingzhou Mountain some time ago, and I recall that Qingzhou Mountain is a foundation establishment cultivator family. If this child belongs to that family, with mediocre talent, indeed he can only marry and live out a peaceful life. Yun Wanshang muttered to herself. Seeing that Lu Changsheng already had a wife and child, she didn't know why, but she felt a pang of disappointment, displeasure. Already married with children yet still so close with Shiyu. Yun Wanshang's face showed a hint of coldness again. No, that's not right. Shiyu said that she managed to escape from robber cultivators thanks to him. Moreover, Shiyu asked me to refine the Golden Crow elixir for his foundation establishment preparations, which means, his cultivation level has already reached qi refinement perfection. The next moment, Yun Wanshang suddenly looked up, realizing another incongruity. Since Lu Changsheng had her gift of the androgynous jade. Chapter 298, Yun Wanshang, how could it be him? So just now, she hadn't paid attention to Lu Changsheng's cultivation level. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise also, because various emotions pervaded her heart and assailed her mind, she forgot about it for the time being. Now that she thought of it, a few traces of surprise and doubt appeared in her heart. Watching the almost departing pair, she quickly followed. Then, she looked toward Lu Changsheng, her eyes shining brightly, as if starry rivers flowed within them, suffused with the light of dawn. 9th level energy refinement. Moreover, the spiritual power aura throughout his body is majestic, faintly exuding a sharp and overbearing presence. The vitality of his physical body is also extremely vigorous, like a demon beast. This. Yun Wanshang used a technique and immediately discerned Lu Changsheng's cultivation level. She couldn't help but feel a wave of shock. It's only been 8 years, right? An 8th grade spiritual root, breaking through from the peak of the 6th level energy refinement to the 9th level energy refinement in 8 years. This speed is barely acceptable, but his entire cultivation, not only is his spiritual power robust, but it also clearly shows signs of magical dual cultivation. Yun Wanshang's eyes were full of surprise and disbelief. If this situation were applied to the talented disciples of Qingyun sect, it would be completely normal. But on Lu Changsheng, it seemed somewhat inconceivable. Huff. Yun Wanshang watched Lu Changsheng, making sure she wasn't mistaken, before exhaling deeply. As a nascent soul immortal, she typically remained unmoved even if Mount Tai were crumbling before her. Even when she learned about Xiaoxia's matters, her eyebrows only slightly furrowed, her expression turning cold. But today, having seen Lu Changsheng, her expression changed dramatically twice in a short period, stirring thousands of waves in her heart. While Yun Wanshang was observing Lu Changsheng's condition, Lu Changsheng also had a prickling feeling as if ants were crawling on his back. Suddenly, he turned his head, then scanned his surroundings. But there were only a few pedestrians scattered around. Nothing was amiss. However, Lu Changsheng trusted his intuition. He knew that this faint feeling, akin to thorns pricking at his back, must be due to someone observing him. Otherwise, without reason, he would not have this sensation. Could it be the patriarch of the Yu family? Because of the previous incident involving the third young master of the Yu family, Lu Changsheng couldn't help but suspect the Yu family. He remembered that the patriarch of the Yu family was currently stationed within the marketplace. But he felt that was unlikely. Why would the other party observe him for no reason? Moreover, he had been in the Red Leaf Valley market for quite some time. If the patriarch really wanted to observe him, he would have done so already, not wait until now. He then looked at Xiaoxia, wondering if someone had set their sights on Xiaoxia again. Changsheng, what's wrong? Xiaoxia also noticed that Lu Changsheng seemed out of sorts and inquired. I just had a faint feeling that someone is secretly observing me. Shiyu, did you encounter anything on the way here? Lu Changsheng stopped looking around, maintained his composure, and spoke through a voice transmission. Changsheng, are you saying someone is following me? I haven't noticed anything unusual on my way here. Upon hearing this, Xiaoxia quickly grasped the meaning behind Lu Changsheng's words and became alert, scanning her surroundings. Is that so? Lu Changsheng took a deep breath. He knew that Xiaoxia practiced the supreme forgetful love technique. In terms of spiritual sense, she was even more sensitive than himself. Since Xiaoxia hadn't noticed anything unusual, it suggested that the person was unrelated to Xiaoxia, or perhaps the observer's cultivation level was so profound that Xiaoxia didn't perceive it at all during her journey. Changsheng, let's meet up later. At that moment, Xiaoxia paused as if she'd come to a realization, pursed her lips, and spoke. She then headed towards the direction of the market's exit. Lu Changsheng saw Xiaoxia suddenly leave and was uncertain of her meaning, but quickly guessed that Xiaoxia must have realized something. Alright, I will also take the child back. Lu Changsheng nodded in acknowledgement and spoke aloud. He prepared to send his daughter home first to have Lu Miaoge look after her, for it would be inconvenient to handle any unexpected events while holding the child. Quite sharp and vigilant. It seems Shiyu has also guessed it's me. Hidden at the side of the street, Yun Wanshang, with her figure concealed, watched the two separate, her expression returning to calm. She knew her actions had made Lu Changsheng wary, causing Xiaoxia to guess that the person watching them covertly was herself. Shiyu, it's your master. To avoid causing her disciple any fear, Yun Wanshang didn't hide it and directly transmitted her voice to her disciple. Master, why have you come? Xiaoxia, hearing her master's voice, also let out a sigh of relief and spoke softly, almost as if talking to herself. But Yun Wanshang could clearly hear her voice. She spoke frankly, your earlier adventures led you into danger, and the matter of the trial by love is of great importance. I'm concerned about you, hence I came to have a look. Thank you, master. Xiaoxia nodded gently, understanding her master's deep concern. Find a place, your master has questions for you. Yun Wanshang continued to communicate telepathically. Yes, master. Immediately, Xiaoxia noticed an inn nearby, and promptly went in to secure a room. In such a way, Yun Wanshang followed Xiaoxia into the room under the cover of invisibility and then revealed herself. Master. Upon seeing Yun Wanshang, Xiaoxia promptly bowed in a greeting. The man just now, he's the one related to your trial by love, isn't he? Yun Wanshang asked with a steady tone. Yes, master. Xiaoxia nodded. Tell your master about the situation between you and him in detail. Yun Wanshang requested. Chapter 299, The Different Levels of Foundation Establishment, from 3 to 6 to 9. _1 In the Room of Ancient Demeanor, reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron M, Li Xiaoxia recounted to Yun Wanshang the general situation between herself and Lu Changsheng. Yun Wanshang listened quietly. During the conversation, she inquired about the matter of Lu Changsheng already having children. Xiaoxia then expressed that this was also a reason she chose Lu Changsheng as the target for her emotional tribulation. Because the supreme forgetful love technique could potentially harm both herself and others in the end. Lu Changsheng was very affectionate, with many wives and children. Under such circumstances, even if she were to leave in the future, she wouldn't cause Lu Changsheng too much sorrow and suffering. Hearing this, Yun Wanshang's fists involuntarily clenched tight. It wasn't because she was angry at Xiaoxia's thoughts. Previously when Xiaoxia asked her to refine the Golden Crow elixir, she had already guessed Xiaoxia's intention. She was thinking of using it to settle their karmic debts, in order to practice the supreme forgetful love technique. Her anger was due to the fact that upon hearing Lu Changsheng had many wives and children, she felt particularly uncomfortable. Recalling how after a night of passion with Lu Changsheng, he looked at her with a pitiful and aggrieved expression. At that time, she thought Lu Changsheng was an innocent and pure young man. But now, hearing Xiaoxia's words and learning that the man had already had a bevy of wives, and was the father of dozens of children, she felt an extreme sense of frustration and dissatisfaction. She almost wished she could strike Lu Changsheng with her sword right now. Rest assured, master, I have already spoken to Changsheng about this, and will explain everything to him when the time comes, Xiaoxia said, pressing her lips together as she looked at her master, thinking that Yun Wanshang was angry with her. Sigh. Yun Wanshang, seeing her disciple like this, wondered whether Xiaoxia could truly overcome her emotional tribulation. She sighed deeply, not wanting to question or dwell on the matter further. Because the matter of an emotional tribulation could only be dealt with by Xiaoxia herself. There was only so much she could help with. You just have to be clear about it in your own heart. If there's anything, you can send a message to your teacher, Yun Wanshang said with a faint sigh. At this point, there wasn't much else she could say. She just felt a profound sense of the whims of fate, which had disrupted her own state of mind. Thank you, master. Xiaoxia's eyes revealed softness as she respectfully bowed in salute. Yun Wanshang waved her hand, indicating for her to leave. Xiaoxia bowed again and left the room of the inn. Sigh, fate really toys with us, muttered Yun Wanshang to herself after Xiaoxia had gone, the room now left with only her. She sighed deeply again. Her heart was a mixture of emotions and she couldn't completely settle down. However, this Lu Changsheng, a mere farmer's son, was rejected in the Qingyun sect's entrance examination, became a son-in-law in a foundation establishment family, and within just over 10 years, he has grown to this extent. It seems he too has had great fortune and a formidable destiny, Yun Wanshang mused, her gaze casting towards the direction of the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop, her expression calm. She had been surprised by Lu Changsheng's level of cultivation when she saw it. She had regarded Lu Changsheng as nothing more than a cultivator with an 8th-grade spiritual root. Now, having understood more about Lu Changsheng through Xianxia, she adapted her thinking, feeling it made sense. After all, as a nascent soul immortal, her vision was naturally higher than that of ordinary people. Lu Changsheng's performance was indeed astonishing, but in the eyes of a nascent soul immortal like her, it was just so. After all, Yun Wanshang herself, on her own cultivation journey, had achieved core formation before the age of 100, not solely because of her exceptional talent, but also due to having opportunities, a great chance and destiny. To think that in the mysterious workings of fate, I chose him, must have been due to some amount of destiny, but alas, fate makes fools of us all, Yun Wanshang sighed softly. For some unknown reason, she felt a hollow restlessness within her heart. She then turned into a rainbow light and disappeared from the inn. Shiyu, Lu Changsheng sent his daughter back to the spiritual talisman shop, leaving her in Lu Maiage's care, and then he returned to the crossroads. Soon after, he saw Xianxia coming out of an inn. Changsheng, Xianxia, upon seeing Lu Changsheng, quickly approached him. Then she spoke up to explain, "The one who was watching you just now was my master. She was worried about me, so she also came down the mountain." Xianxia said. "Your master?" Lu Changsheng was startled when he heard this. He knew that Xianxia's master was a nascent soul immortal from the Qingyun sect. He hadn't expected that this nascent soul immortal would actually accompany Xianxia down the mountain. And that she had been secretly observing him. This sent a shiver down his spine. After all, if a nascent soul immortal took a dislike to him, he would have no hope of escape. "Did your master leave any instructions?" Lu Changsheng cautiously asked. He was unsure what this nascent soul immortal's attitude toward him might be. After all, the current situation between him and Xianxia might be displeasing to a master. "Don't worry, my master was just concerned about me and came to see for herself. Now that she's seen me, she should be leaving," said Xianxia, her lips curving slightly as she watched Lu Changsheng react. "I regret that I didn't get to meet the immortal," Lu Changsheng said, feeling relieved upon hearing that. He roughly understood that Xianxia's master was aware that Xianxia was using him to cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique. Therefore, she probably didn't mind the nature of his relationship with Xianxia. "If that nascent soul immortal knew that I wanted her disciple to bear a child for me, I am afraid she would strike me down with a single sword," thought Lu Changsheng inwardly. "Usually, my master doesn't like meeting people, but if there's a chance in the future, I will introduce you," said Xianxia. "I was just speaking off the cuff," Lu Changsheng waved his hand and said. Although he was curious about Xianxia's master, the nascent soul immortal of Qingyun sect, he had no real desire to meet her. After all, facing a great cultivator with such an immense gap in strength could truly be frightening. Chapter 300, Foundation Establishment's 369 Ranks. He still clearly remembered the first time he had met the Lu family ancestor, his heart was in a flutter. Reading N novel cool. M. Lease, Changsheng, is there a second-order cave mansion available for rent in the marketplace? Xianxia asked Lu Changsheng. Second-order cave mansion, there should be. Lu Changsheng knew that Xianxia was planning to temporarily reside here. He had a second-order cave mansion before, but since he didn't live here much, and when he did, it was with Lu Miaoge, so he rented the mansion to Gao He. However, if Xianxia needed one, he could still rent a mansion from the Lu family currently. Immediately, Lu Chongsheng took Xianxia to the Lu family compound in Red Leaf Valley to find the Great Elder. Nowadays, the Great Elder of the Lu family presided over the Red Leaf Valley market. Great Elder, my good friend here would like to temporarily settle in the Red Leaf Valley marketplace. I wonder if our family still has a spare second-order cave mansion for rent. Upon meeting the Great Elder, Lu Chongsheng greeted him with a clasped fist and bow. You've come at the right time, there happens to be one second-order cave mansion left, the Great Elder said with a chuckle. Then, he glanced at the aloof Xianxia standing by his side. He couldn't help thinking to himself, wondering where Lu Chongsheng had acquainted such a girl. Not only was she stunningly beautiful, but her demeanor was also unapproachable. Her cultivation level made even him, the Great Elder of the Lu family, unable to see through her, feeling it enigmatic. He wondered if she could be another Foundation establishment great cultivator. Then I'll trouble the Great Elder, Lu Chongsheng said, expressing his intention to rent immediately. Considering Xianxia probably wouldn't stay long, Lu Chongsheng decided to rent the mansion for 1 year. Normally, such mansions were rented out for at least 3 to 5 years at a time. But after all, Lu Chongsheng was considered one of their own. So, they rented it out for just 1 year. And it was for the lowest rental fee. After renting the cave mansion, Lu Chongsheng bid farewell to the Great Elder. With the token in hand, he led Xianxia to the cave mansion area in the Red Leaf Valley market. This mansion was just like the one Lu Chongsheng had rented to Gao He. Merely 100 square meters, it was spacious and neat. The mansion was endowed with formations and restrictions, making it very quiet. Now, with a single man and a single woman sharing the same room, Lu Chongsheng didn't pretend to be a paragon of virtue. Shiyu, after not seeing each other for so long, let me see if your cultivation has fallen behind. Looking at the woman in front of him, dressed in white, her face cold and stunningly beautiful, reminiscent of the Guanghan fairy, Lu Chongsheng pulled her into his embrace. Chongsheng, after several months, the familiar scent that rushed over caught Xianxia off guard, making her whimper and her fair, snowy cheeks flushing with a soft rosy tint. Looks like your cultivation has indeed been neglected. Lu Chongsheng teased. Xianxia's long lashes trembled slightly, somewhat indignant, and she began to fight back. As they went back and forth, Xianxia gradually regained her state, matching Lu Chongsheng's moves. After a long while, Chongsheng, I have a gift for you, Xianxia said, sitting in Lu Chongsheng's arms, slightly out of breath. Her clear, stunning face, like melting ice and snow, flowers beneath heaps of snow was breathtakingly beautiful. A gift? Lu Chongsheng held Xianxia in his arms, raising an eyebrow. He immediately guessed that she was referring to what she had said before about helping him with his Foundation establishment. However, he didn't hold much expectation for this gift, as he was rather distracted by the beauty before him. After all, a gentleman keeps his tools of the trade to himself and takes action only at the appropriate time. Chongsheng, this is the Golden Crow Elixir, it will aid your cultivation, allowing you to quickly reach qi refinement perfection. Moreover, contained within the Golden Crow Elixir is a thread of Great Sun Essence, which not only can compensate for your losses in male-female affairs but will also assist you with your Foundation establishment. Xianxia took out a porcelain bottle from her storage bag. She opened the bottle. Instantly, a fiery medicinal fragrance filled the air, revealing to Lu Chongsheng a round, golden elixir medicine, with what appeared to be strands of flickering flames on it. Shiyu, isn't this elixir a bit precious? Lu Chongsheng had never heard of the Golden Crow Elixir, but from the appearance of the elixir and Xiaoxia's description of its effects, he knew it was extraordinary. After all, anything related to Foundation establishment was far from cheap. You've saved my life before and helped with my cultivation, what is one elixir in comparison? When Xiaoxia mentioned helping her with cultivation, her face turned slightly red. Back in Rui County City when Lu Chongsheng talked about helping with her cultivation, it was somewhat justifiable, but now, with the two of them in such a situation, talking about cultivation felt like she was deceiving herself. If you're going to be like that, it would seem too formal. Since that's the case, I'll accept it. Lu Chongqing said, not shying away, knowing that a woman like Xianxia was actually very independent and didn't want to owe him too much. Before she returned to Qingyun sect, aside from resolving the assassination incident, she had already thought of how to repay him. If you're not occupied with anything, just consume the Golden Crow elixir now, it'll protect you while you assimilate it, Xianxia continued. Okay, Lu Chongqing responded, nodding, his expression turning serious. He set down the warm, fragrant soft jade from his arms and swallowed the Golden Crow elixir. As soon as the elixir went down, Lu Chongqing instantly felt a massive and pure force spreading throughout his body, warm and very comfortable, but before he could enjoy it, boom! It was as if a great sun had exploded in his lower abdomen, turning into rolling flames, engulfing his whole body, burning his limbs and bones. Hot, hot, hot. Lu Chongqing felt blazing hot, as if he was on fire. On his flesh and muscles, golden flames started to ignite. Chongqing, circulate your energy, Xiaoxia's voice rang out. Then, her lips, soft as clouds, landed on Lu Chongqing's, and at the moment he felt their warm softness, a profound and icy energy, through her red lips, slowly flowed into him. Yin and Yang, merged as one. Chapter 301, The 369 Ranks of Foundation Establishment. Under the washing of this cool spiritual power, the violent and scorching medicinal force within Lu Chongqing gradually smoothed out. Reading Omicron novel Cool. Omicron Licit also made the intense pain from his burning flesh and blood disappear by a large extent. At this moment, Lu Chongqing wasn't distracted by the fairy's fragrant lips. Instead, he began to perform the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture. He swiftly refined the huge and pure medicinal strength of the Golden Crow elixir. He could see the scorching medicinal force of the Golden Crow elixir, under the influence of Xiaoxia's cool spiritual energy, slowly transform into a firebird resembling a golden crow, leisurely wandering through his limbs and meridians. During this process, Lu Chongqing not only felt his cultivation level crazily increase. His flesh and blood, meridians, and inner organs were also being washed and condensed. If it hadn't been for his cultivation of the 100 refinements treasure body art, with his flesh having withstood thousands of trials, the effect of this force on his physical body would have been even more remarkable. Just like that, time ticked away bit by bit. Half a month passed. Lu Chongqing opened his eyes. His eyes were bright and spirited, his body felt unprecedentedly comfortable. He exhaled a breath of stale air. Looking inward at his chi ocean core. The 7-colored Dan Lake surged like an ocean, its aura robust. At this moment, his cultivation had reached the pinnacle of chi refinement. With just a few more months of polishing his spiritual power, ensuring it was well-rounded to his satisfaction, he could then prepare for the foundation establishment. Hiss, this speed. Lu Chongqing also found the speed of his increase in cultivation level to be shocking. After all, according to his own forecast. Even with the assistance of elixir medicines, reaching chi refinement perfection would still take 3 to 5 years. But now, after just a short while, his spiritual power had already achieved chi refinement perfection. This made him realize even more the extraordinariness of that Golden Crow elixir. Not just the Golden Crow elixir, but also the spiritual energy that Xiaoxia had transferred into his body. Why is this thing still here? Lu Chongqing noticed a small golden crow slowly moving within his 7-colored Dan Lake. It was the fiery bird that had roamed through his meridians during the refinement of the Golden Crow elixir. Chongqing, you're awake. Xiaoxia, looking at Lu Chongqing waking up, revealed a faint, gentle smile. Perhaps due to transferring too much spiritual energy to Lu Chongqing, she looked slightly pale. Xiyu, you've worked hard. Lu Chongqing, seeing Xiaoxia looking like this, knew it was due to helping him refine the elixir. He held her hand, expressing his gratitude. He then inquired, Xiyu, why is there a small golden crow roaming about in my Dan Lake? That is the most precious great sun essence of the Golden Crow elixir. When you break through to foundation establishment, this strand of Great Sun essence will solidify your base, ensuring you can gather an unblemished Dao foundation, and you might even have the chance to coalesce a Great Sun Dao foundation. However, the foundation of your spiritual power is several times more robust than I expected. Even without this strand of Great Sun essence, you'd be able to form a perfect foundation base on your own. Xianxia explained aloud. A perfect foundation base, a Great Sun Dao foundation? Shiyu, does foundation establishment also have various levels? Lu Chongsheng, upon hearing this, was somewhat surprised. He knew that once one's spiritual power was well-rounded and satisfactory after achieving qi refinement perfection, one could prepare for foundation establishment. Break through the 3 barriers of foundation establishment, transform the Dan Lake into a true sea, raise a Dao platform, shed the mortal body, and build a Dao foundation, becoming a foundation establishment great cultivator. He cultivated in the 7 luminaries great freedom sword scripture, and after breaking through foundation establishment, a Dao platform constructed by the 7 luminaries' spiritual power would be raised in the Dan Lake. This Dao platform was also known as the 7 luminaries Dao platform. But now, from Xiaoxia's words, it seemed that there were indeed varying levels of Dao foundations. You don't know, Chongsheng? Xiaoxia, on hearing this, looked somewhat surprised. But then she remembered the Lu family Lu Chongsheng belonged to was only a foundation establishment family. And since Lu Chongsheng had always been humble about his cultivation level, it was normal for him to not have come across this information. She proceeded to explain to Lu Chongsheng, yes, when you strike for foundation establishment, after you break through the 3 barriers, a Dao platform rises from the Dan Lake. The platform radiates bright light, circulates throughout the body, sheds the mortal form. This is foundation establishment. But depending on the different cultivation techniques, one's own foundation, the resulting Dao platform also has levels of superiority and inferiority. If one is old, with declining vitality and blood, a baseless foundation, or if the divine sense is weak, even if they pass the 3 foundation establishment barriers and succeed, the raised Dao platform will have flaws and cracks. Such a foundation establishment is called a flawed Dao foundation, or even a shattered Dao foundation. If the platform is riddled with too many flaws and cracks, it not only affects the speed and power of cultivation but also makes it much more difficult to break through bottlenecks and to form a core later on. A Dao platform that rises flawless and perfect is called an unblemished Dao foundation, which offers a prospect of forming a core in the future. Above the unblemished Dao foundation lies the perfect foundation base. It is formed on the basis of being flawless and perfect by cultivating a technique that is in harmony with oneself, or with the help of foundation establishment spiritual objects or treasures that match oneself, allowing the individual Dao platform to ascend to greater heights. I am endowed with the moonlight spirit body and cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique, so if I succeed in foundation establishment, I can forge a perfect Moon Dao foundation. And the Great Sun Dao foundation also belongs to a perfect foundation establishment. Xiaoxia uttered these words. A flawed Dao foundation, an unblemished Dao foundation, a perfect foundation base. Lu Chongsheng nodded upon hearing this. It was only now that he learned about the various levels of foundation establishment. But he wasn't surprised by this. After all, he hadn't heard the detailed classifications of foundation establishment, but he knew there were divisions such as true core and false core in forming a core. Under such circumstances, differing levels of the Dao platform during foundation establishment was quite normal. I cultivate the 7 luminaries great freedom sword scripture, and when I raise the Dao platform from the Dan Lake, it will be a 7 luminaries Dao platform. According to Shi Yu's description, it should be considered a perfect foundation base, right? Lu Chongsheng thought to himself. Chapter 302, Purple Mansion Nurturing Divine Technique, Birth of Divine Sense. _1, is my Dao foundation a perfect foundation establishment? Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise Lu Chongsheng asked aloud. He felt that his 7 luminaries Dao foundation was most likely a perfect foundation. But he still asked for confirmation. After all, when it comes to foundation establishment, carelessness is not an option. Moreover, Xianxia had told him all her personal secrets like the supreme forgetful love technique and the moonlight spirit body. Revealing a bit of his cultivation technique information was nothing in comparison. 7 Luminary Sword Scripture, 7 Luminaries Dao Foundation. Xianxia naturally had not heard of this cultivation technique. But from the words, 7 Luminaries Dao Foundation, she knew it was at least a top-notch peripheral sect-level cultivation technique. Because only techniques of this level could condense a Dao foundation that matched the technique itself. After pondering for a moment, she said, I'm not certain about this. But before, I noticed that your foundation is robust, Changsheng. If you succeed in foundation establishment, your Dao platform will undoubtedly be flawless. If this technique is compatible with you and you have cultivated it without issue, then it is very likely a perfect Dao foundation. Xianxia said somewhat uncertainly. After all, she was just an energy-refining cultivator. She only knew so much about foundation establishment because Yun Wanshang was about to do it and had imparted much knowledge and experience to her. She had also read through a lot of information on the topic and was more knowledgeable. But she couldn't draw many conclusions from Lu Changsheng's brief description. If I was originally able to create a perfect foundation establishment, would this thread of Great Sun essence have any impact? Lu Changsheng continued to ask. So far, he had not felt any drawbacks from the thread of Great Sun essence. But he didn't know if it would have any impact. Changsheng, you can be at ease about this. Great Sun essence is a rare treasure of heaven and earth. It will only make your foundation more robust, and it's beneficial for your foundation establishment. It might even take your 7 Luminaries Dao foundation to a higher level. Xianxia declared at once. She then explained to Lu Changsheng many details about foundation establishment, sharing with him knowledge and her experience. For instance, what to pay attention to when striking at foundation establishment, passing through the 3 barriers. How to maximize the success rate of foundation establishment. During foundation establishment, how to choose foundation establishment spirit objects. How to select the foundation establishment spirit objects most compatible with oneself. In addition to the perfect foundation under the compatibility of one's cultivation technique, there are also the Great Sun Dao Foundation, Taiyin Dao Foundation, Gung Metal Dao Foundation, 5 Elements Dao Foundation, 3 Flowers Gathered Atop Dao Foundation, 5 Qi Towards Yuan Dao Foundation. Learning all this information about foundation establishment made Lu Changsheng widen his eyes. He couldn't help feeling amazed that even something as simple as foundation establishment had so many intricacies involved. No wonder countless loose cultivators would join a force in exchange for just a bit of insight into foundation establishment, essentially risking their lives for it. Because this knowledge is indeed important. It's greatly helpful for an ordinary cultivator's foundation establishment. And ordinary loose cultivators simply couldn't access this kind of information and had no choice but to commit themselves to a power. If I demonstrated the strength of a cultivator at the peak of Qi refinement, the Lu family would also give me such insights into foundation establishment. But the understanding and insights of foundation establishment from the Lu family are definitely not as profound as Xianxia's, Lu Changsheng reflected inwardly. He realized once again at this moment the benefits of joining a major force. But the fact that Xianxia knew so much was also because behind her stood Qingyun sect, one of the 4 great immortal sects of Jianghu country, and she had a nascent soul mentor. Otherwise, an ordinary disciple from an immortal sect wouldn't necessarily know so much. Shiyu, these are the foundation establishment spirit objects I have prepared for myself. Which do you think are suitable for me? At this time, Lu Changsheng took out 5 foundation establishment spirit objects from his storage bag. Since he was going to aim for perfect foundation establishment, he naturally wanted to lay the most solid groundwork possible. Although Xianxia had told him a lot just now, he still wasn't clear on how to choose the right spirit objects for foundation establishment. This is Blood Yang Fruit, Blood Lingji, Profound Yin True Water, Heavenly Heart Lotus, Jade Soul Flower, Xianxia looked at the 5 foundation establishment spirit objects that Lu Changsheng had taken out all at once and felt somewhat stunned. Although she was a disciple of a nascent soul immortal, she was not oblivious to the harshness of cultivation. She knew the difficulties of cultivation, and that foundation establishment spirit objects were very precious. An ordinary cultivator would be lucky to find a single one when establishing their foundation. But now, Lu Changsheng had actually produced 5 at once. And she could tell that Lu Changsheng's physical body, blood essence, and mana were incredibly robust. He could completely do without the assistance of foundation establishment spirit objects. At most, he would need one to assist with the divine sense during foundation establishment. Changsheng, with your robust body, vigorous blood essence, and powerful spiritual energy, you have no need for foundation establishment spirit objects to assist you. Using foundation establishment spirit objects might actually affect your blood essence and the purity of your magic aura. For the divine sense barrier, you could use the heavenly heart lotus as an aid. Moreover, I have a secret technique that can assist you during your foundation establishment, so you don't need to rely on these spirit objects. However, this jade soul flower has a warming effect on the mental spirit, so you can use it now to nurture your mental spirit, which might enable you to directly produce divine sense. Xianxia spoke, saying this. Although it said one's mental spirit evolves and divine sense is born only upon foundation establishment, this doesn't mean it's impossible to develop divine sense during the qi refinement realm. Secret technique? What secret technique? Lu Changsheng's eyebrows rose upon hearing this. He hadn't expected that, aside from the golden crow elixir, Xianxia also had a secret technique to assist his foundation establishment. This was akin to having his meal spoon-fed to him. It was as if she was really worried that his foundation establishment would fail or be suboptimal. But the more Xianxia did this, the more Lu Changsheng felt she did not want to be indebted to him. She seemed intent on paying back her debt for the cultivation assistance and life-saving grace through these means. You'll know when the time comes, Xianxia pursed her lips and didn't reveal the technique. After all, she was aware that the method wasn't really a secret technique. Lu Changsheng, hearing this, did not fixate on the secret technique any further. Chapter 303, Purple Mansion Nurturing Divine Technique, Birth of Divine Sense. Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron M, Lise he asked how to use the Jade Soul Flower. If the Jade Soul Flower is refined into a spirit-nourishing elixir, the effect would naturally be the best. However, to refine the spirit-nourishing elixir, one also needs to seek other auxiliary materials and request an alchemist to make it. Changsheng, you can simply swallow it directly once it's done. Xianxia opened her mouth and spoke. After she finished speaking, she seemed to think of something and asked, Changsheng, have you cultivated any spiritual training techniques? No, Lu Changsheng shook his head. His source for cultivation techniques was all down to drawing lots. But so far, he hadn't drawn any techniques for cultivating mental strength. However, within the Red Phoenix True Scripture, there was a secret technique for divine sense attack. But he was incapable of cultivating it. I possess a Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique that can train the spirit and warm nourish the divine sense, which would aid you in refining the Jade Soul Flower, Xianxia said aloud. Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit Technique? Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng immediately asked, can this technique be taught to others? It was said that techniques should not be lightly transmitted. Originally, when Lu Yuanzhong gave him the Greenwood art, he made him promise not to transmit it to others. Xiaoxia's Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique was most likely also learned within Qingyun sect. Within Qingyun sect, there surely would be strict rules against disciples transmitting techniques to outsiders. This technique was bestowed upon me by my master, so passing it on doesn't count as violating the sect rules, Xiaoxia explained. If you teach me, your master won't blame you, will he? Lu Changsheng continued to inquire. Though he yearned for a technique to cultivate his spirit, he did not want to cause trouble for Xiaoxia because of a technique. In the Seven Luminaries' Great Freedom Sword Scripture, on the second level, after condensing the Seven Luminary Star Lamp, there was an effect that helped practitioners to see their true nature, which could be considered as a half-mental cultivation method. My master did not say it couldn't be transmitted. She won't blame me, Xianxia spoke softly. Logically, before transmitting a technique, one should inform their master. But under the current circumstances, she obviously couldn't go back just to report this. She also believed that her master wouldn't blame her. Thank you, Xiu. When Lu Changsheng heard this, he stopped refusing. Shortly after, Xianxia began teaching him the chant of the Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique and passed on the method of cultivation to Lu Changsheng. Under Xianxia's guidance, it took Lu Changsheng 3 days to grasp the basics of the Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique. The entire person sat in meditation, his mind as quiet and dark as space. Transporting the blood and spiritual power throughout his body, it transformed into purple mist, pervading his body, lighting up the dark world. Amidst the darkness, a purple palatial divine mansion gradually emerged. Huff! Watching Lu Changsheng begin to cultivate the Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique, Xianxia also breathed a sigh of relief. She thought to herself that Lu Changsheng had finally mastered it. Originally, under Yun Wansheng's teaching, she had grasped the Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique in a single day. But seeing Lu Changsheng take 3 days to master it, she couldn't help but doubt herself. Was there some deficiency in her teaching? Why did it take Lu Changsheng so long to understand and comprehend this technique? She never doubted Lu Changsheng's aptitude. After all, the techniques that Lu Changsheng was currently cultivating were at least top tier at the peripheral sect level. Being able to master such techniques indicated that his comprehension and innate talent were definitely not poor, and could be considered extraordinary. It must be that I didn't explain the details clearly enough. Not like every word my master uttered was profound and enlightening. Xianxia thought to herself. Lu Changsheng, of course, did not know Xianxia's thoughts. He was also unaware of his own innate comprehension and talent. After all, aside from a copy of the Returning Origin technique and some primary level spells, he hadn't spent much time or thought in this area. Techniques like the Immortal Beauty technique, the 100 Refinements Treasure Body Art, and the 7 Luminaries Great Freedom Sword Scripture were fed to him by the system. He didn't have to spend any effort of his own. As for his own aptitude, he had no concept of it. Once Lu Changsheng's cultivation was almost complete, Xianxia softly woke him and told him that the process of the Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique was actually nourishing the spirit through the essence of qi and blood, and that cultivation should not be overdone. Once immersed in it, it might damage oneself. Huff! Lu Changsheng opened his eyes, feeling full of spirit. But his Buddhist qi and blood felt somewhat depleted. He realized that training the spirit also consumed physical support. Changsheng, take some time to recover now, then swallow the Jade Soul Flower, and see if you can manifest divine sense by refining the Jade Soul Flower with the Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique, Xianxia said to Lu Changsheng. In her opinion, with Lu Changsheng's extraordinary talent and being at the 9th level of energy refinement, there was hope he could manifest divine sense. All right, Lu Changsheng nodded. He took out an elixir from his storage bag and swallowed it to begin restoring himself and regulating his condition. Once his condition was fully restored, Lu Changsheng confirmed with Xianxia that there were no issues and then swallowed the Jade Soul Flower, a Foundation Establishment spirit object that aided with impacting the barrier to Foundation Establishment, which could be extremely helpful. One Foundation Establishment spirit object was worth at least 2,000 to 3,000 spirit stones. But now, Lu Changsheng had directly consumed it. This Jade Soul Flower was cool to the touch, with a bitter taste that carried a hint of sweetness, not unpleasant to eat. But as he swallowed it, Lu Changsheng immediately felt a light and agile energy coursing through his body. It was like a breeze blowing across his flesh. Changsheng, Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique. Xianxia's voice rose, reminding Lu Changsheng. Lu Changsheng immediately began to circulate the Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique. He warmed and nourished his spirit with the light and agile energy from the jade soul flower, along with the essence of qi and blood. The air around him was filled with purple mist, with auspicious clouds steaming. In the silent and dark world of his mind, an ancient and weighty purple palatial divine mansion appeared, starting to expel the darkness. Time trickled by. He was unaware of how long it had passed. Boom! Lu Chongqing saw the darkness in his mind nearly cleared by the purple mansion, his brain thundering. It made his brow begin to swell. It was as if an eye in his forehead was slowly opening. Chapter 304, Purple Mansion Nurturing Divine Technique, Birth of Divine Sense. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise Lu Chongqing immediately discovered that the eye on his forehead could see the surroundings. Or rather, this vision was not seen through the eyes, but perceived through the third eye on the forehead, and then transferred to the brain. It was even clearer and more direct than what he saw with his own eyes. And he could watch in all directions at the same time, a full 360 degrees without any dead angles. At this moment, Lu Chongqing saw a figure sitting cross-legged, eyes slightly closed, face like jade, a handsome and spirited beautiful man. Hiss, is there really such a transcendently handsome man in the world? Lu Chongqing exclaimed, oh, it turns out to be myself, then it's fine. After glancing at his own handsome appearance twice, Lu Chongqing retracted his gaze and slowly opened his eyes. He also realized that this third eye must be what cultivators call divine sense. He hadn't expected a single jade soul flower to directly bring forth his divine sense. Isn't this a bit too simple? Could it be that because I have lived two lives, I am different from ordinary people in terms of spirit, so a jade soul flower directly birthed my divine sense? Lu Chongqing speculated in his heart. Without giving it much thought, he shared with Xianxia the phenomenon of his newly generated divine sense. He asked if this was the birth of divine sense. I knew that you, Chongqing, could generate divine sense. Upon hearing this, Xianxia wasn't too surprised. In her eyes, Lu Chongqing was now a genius. Even though his spiritual root was only 9th grade, he had other opportunities and might even possess some kind of spiritual body. Now, at the 9th level energy refinement of cultivation level, taking the jade soul flower and producing divine sense was also normal. Chongqing, how far can your divine sense reach? Xianxia inquired. About 10 feet or so. Lu Chongqing closed his eyes again to sense, and then spoke. Only 10 feet, that's already enough. A newly foundation established cultivator usually has divine sense coverage of about 30 feet. Chongqing, you don't need the aid of the heavenly heart lotus anymore when you attempt foundation establishment. Xianxia said with a tender look in her eyes. This is all thanks to your guidance and help, Shiyu. Lu Chongqing also showed a hint of delight. He wasn't concerned about his divine sense being only 10 feet. After all, he hadn't truly reached foundation establishment. Being able to generate divine sense without foundation establishment was already quite good. Shiyu, how is your cultivation going now? At this time, Lu Chongqing also showed concern for Xiaoxia's cultivation. Originally, he was supposed to help Xiaoxia with her cultivation. However, for so long, it had been Xiaoxia helping him with his cultivation. Lu Chongqing felt somewhat embarrassed. I need Lu Lang's help. Upon hearing Lu Changsheng's concern, Xiaoxia's eyelashes trembled lightly. Lu Chongqing immediately embraced the beauty and pressed his lips to hers. Suddenly, their breaths flowed steadily like the tide, back and forth. Lu Chongqing knew that merely doing this would not have any effect on Xiaoxia's cultivation. Later, to repay the fairy for her help in cultivation, he humbled himself, willing to work hard for reciprocity. Time passed unknowingly, and after a while, Lu Chongqing and the fairy ended their cultivation, holding Xiaoxia's fairy-like body tightly. The fairy's ebony hair was slightly disheveled, with strands sticking to her beautiful and bright cheeks. Her cool and beautiful eyes twinkled, brimming with allure and charm as they opened and closed. "Shiyu, it seems your cultivation still has a long way to go," Lu Changsheng, like a dog devouring the moon, nibbled on her tender snow-white flesh, his words muffled and soft. After tasting something salty, naturally, one craves a bit of sweetness to freshen the palate. Xianxia frowned delicately, lightly wrapping her arms around Lu Changsheng's shoulders, not wanting to move even a finger. The supreme forgetful love technique quickly circulated, calmly suppressing the surging desires. Feeling the stir of Lu Changsheng's noble instrument, she pursed her lips and leaned in closer with her head. Lu Changsheng was taken aback for a moment. He wanted to say there was no need for such measures. But the words reached his lips and were swallowed back down. Lu Changsheng's brows furrowed and relaxed unknowingly. He remembered how the fairy was once high above, like the 9 heavens' bright moon, unattainable, commanding reverence that forbade any irreverent thoughts. Yet now, she had descended to the mortal world, exposed to the elements. After a long while, Xiaoxia's fair face flushed red, her black hair cascading down around her temples, concealing her cold and stunning cheeks, her pretty brows slightly knitted. "Shiyu, you don't have to force yourself if this is too much for you," Lu Changsheng said, embracing the beauty in his arms. "I'm just cultivating, it's not a bother," Xiaoxia replied softly, her swan-like neck undulating, her voice trembling slightly. Although she didn't quite understand the matters between men and women, she wasn't entirely naive. She knew that all this time, Lu Changsheng had been restraining himself. Thus, she was also willing to take this step forward on her own. Seeing this, Lu Changsheng sighed softly in his heart. He couldn't help but think of the past with Lu Miaoge. After he had spent his life force to save Lu Miaoge, their relationship had taken a step further. Back then, Lu Miaoge was utterly obedient to him. Yet, she was unwilling to marry him. Now, Xiaoxia's behavior gave him the same feeling. It felt as if she was also considering ending their relationship after the cultivation was complete, severing their karmic ties. Lu Changsheng didn't ponder over it for too long. He knew these things couldn't be rushed. After all, with the relationship having progressed this far, he was certainly going to marry her. He continued to cultivate with Xiaoxia for several more days. Lu Changsheng also remembered that since he and Xiaoxia had arrived at the cave dwelling, they had been cultivating the whole time. It had been almost a month already. All this time, he hadn't even spoken to Lu Miaoge. And usually, his daughter Lu Qingzhu lived on Qingzhu Mountain. Only when he came to Red Leaf Valley Market would he bring the child to keep Lu Miaoge company. During this time, Lu Miaoge had to look after both the shop and the child, leaving her no time to cultivate. Soon after, Lu Changsheng told Xiaoxia that he must return home and that he would come back later to accompany her in cultivation. "All right," Xiaoxia, having completed her cultivation and regained her composure, nodded gently. Seeing her calm demeanor, it was only at times like these that Lu Changsheng felt he might be too affectionate. The favors of a beautiful woman are the hardest to repay. Lu Changsheng sighed softly as he left the cave dwelling and quickly headed back to the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop. After Lu Changsheng left, Xiaoxia's countenance and expression turned cold and detached. Her eyes, like the bright moon in the heavens, carried a faint celestial aura, indifferent and tranquil. "Sister Miaoge," Lu Changsheng arrived on the 3rd floor of the spiritual talisman shop and saw Lu Miaoge lulling her daughter to sleep. A sense of guilt immediately surged in his heart. "Changsheng, you're back." Lu Miaoge looked at Lu Changsheng, her face revealing a tender and warm smile, her aura gentle as water. Ever since becoming a mother, her once ethereal spirit had softened to a gentle and dignified grace. "Sister Miaoge, I was delayed due to my cultivation." Lu Changsheng guessed that Lu Miaoge already knew about him and Xiaoxia renting the cave dwelling. He did not conceal anything, explaining what he had been doing these days with Xiaoxia. One reason was, he still had quite some time left to cultivate with Xiaoxia. Additionally, Xiaoxia would also be considered the future mother of his child. And Lu Miaoge was privy to many of his secrets. Therefore, there was no need to completely hide such matters. P.S. I've been dragging my feet writing in the evenings recently, feeling muddled. While organizing the text today, I found 2 minor issues and have applied fixes. 1. In chapter 132, I forgot to mention the system's lottery when the protagonist's spiritual root progeny reached 25. Therefore, I simply added a sentence about winning a 2nd rank skill, Spirit Slaughterer, in the lottery. 2. In chapter 139, when the protagonist's 100 refinements treasure body art broke through to the 3rd level, the magical treasure embryo obtained from the red-robed youth was refined and concentrated into his right hand. These 2 patches are just a few hundred words and don't affect other plotlines at all. Chapter 305, the first offspring, completes the introduction of Qi into the body. _1 Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise, in this world, there actually exists such a cultivation technique. This way of cultivation, upon hearing about Xiaoxia's affairs from Lu Changsheng, the cultivation of the fairy, Lu Miaoge was somewhat surprised and amazed. She did not doubt Lu Changsheng's words. After all, there was no need for Lu Changsheng to deceive her. Moreover, in this vast world, nothing is too strange. She had also seen in ancient texts that many profound cultivation techniques were very demanding and could even have side effects. It was just surprising to have a practitioner of such a technique appear right beside her. Yes, I was also very astonished when I first heard about it. This technique was also mentioned in ancient texts. Lu Changsheng smiled and said. He did not say too much about the cultivation technique. After all, this matter could be considered Xiaoxia's privacy, her secret. It's also because you are charming, that Fairy Xiao would choose you as her cultivation partner, Lu Miaoge said gently, with a graceful look on her face. Although she felt somewhat jealous about this matter, she did not mind too much. After all, Lu Changsheng was known for being inconstant in love. Having married the 2 sisters and having not taken any more wives or concubines in the past 3 years, focusing instead on serious cultivation, had already made her very content. Besides, this matter was advantageous for Lu Changsheng and could be considered an opportunity. But Changsheng, after cultivating for so long, don't you have any thoughts about Fairy Xiao? Lu Miaoge looked at her husband with a smile that was not quite a smile. Ahem, if I say I don't have any thoughts at all, Sister Miaoge, you definitely won't believe me. But between her and me, it's only about cultivation after all. Moreover, our statuses are worlds apart. In the end, I'm afraid it's a relationship with no fate, and it cannot be forced. Lu Changsheng coughed softly and then shook his head with a sigh. Although in his heart, Xiaoxia was already the mother of his child. But such things were not necessary to discuss at the moment, nor did it fit his persona. Storms begin with a small ripple, waves form from gentle disturbances. In my heart, husband has great aspirations, and you will surely soar to great heights in the future, achieving success on the path of immortality. How can you belittle yourself? Lu Miaoge looked at Lu Changsheng, her voice was soft and sincere as she spoke. Having spent so many years with Lu Changsheng as his wife, she could naturally tell that her husband was not truly devoid of ambition, but rather held great aspirations in his heart. She did not like to see Lu Changsheng looking down on himself, belittling himself. Sister Miaoge. Lu Changsheng was slightly startled. He did not expect that just by putting on a sighing face, his wife would comfort him like this. This warmed his heart and he felt very at ease. He then stepped forward and gently embraced his wife, preparing to assist her with cultivation. Little Zhu just fell asleep. Lu Miaoge, knowing what Lu Changsheng was about to do, her cheeks tinged with red, whispered softly. It's all right, with the peaceful spirit talisman and the silencing talisman, she won't wake up, Lu Changsheng said. Then he gently picked up his daughter, Lu Qingzhu, and placed her in the bedroom. He placed a peaceful spirit talisman on her to calm her mental spirit and ensure deep sleep. With a silencing talisman, he enveloped her in silence to block out any noise and prevent her from being disturbed. In the following time, Lu Chongsheng spent most of his days in the Red Leaf Valley Market. He went back to Jianghu Mountain only once every month or two. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Because he spent most of this half-year in the Red Leaf Valley Market with the fairy, Xianxia, and dual cultivation with Lu Miaoge, his progress in having children was slightly delayed. Only 3 more children were added. However, his cultivation level had reached the perfection of qi refinement after half a year's cultivation and was polished to perfection. He was ready to attempt foundation establishment. Chongsheng, in the next period of time, accompany me to travel around, and let's observe this bustling world, Xianxia said to Lu Chongsheng with a pulled-in lip after knowing he had reached the perfection of qi refinement, his cultivation level smooth and perfect, and that he was ready for foundation establishment. In this half a year, she barely stepped out of her cave dwelling. When Lu Chongsheng was there, she would cultivate with him. If Lu Chongsheng was not around, she would cultivate alone. All right. Lu Chongsheng looked at Xianxia, who showed a hopeful smile, and he realized something in his heart and nodded. During this half-year, he and Xianxia had become incredibly close, having cultivated together in every way possible except for the final step. And in this process, Xianxia not only became increasingly proactive but her entire demeanor became lively and charming, as if she had shed all pretense, washing away the natural coolness and pride of her being. Returning to the Xianxia from over a decade ago in his memory. Making Lu Chongsheng puzzled about what was currently happening with Xianxia. How her cultivation was going. Xiyu, how's your cultivation coming along? Lu Chongsheng asked aloud. He guessed that Xiaoxia's cultivation must be nearly complete. Otherwise, she would not suggest at this time that he accompany her out. It's almost done. Xiaoxia pressed her lips together and did not hide anything. Hearing this, Lu Chongsheng internally said it was as expected. His feelings were somewhat complicated at the moment. If Xiaoxia's cultivation was coming to an end, and she was ready to overcome her emotional tribulations, it meant that his current relationship with her was also nearing its end. Congratulations, Xiyu. When do you plan to set out? Lu Chongsheng let out a breath, not becoming overly sentimental. A warm smile appeared on his face. In his view, this was not some sort of eternal separation. Even if there was a parting, it was merely to make the eventual reunion all the more joyous. Whatever you arrange. Xiaoxia saw the smile on Lu Chongsheng's face and also revealed a radiant smile, very enchanting. In that case, let's set off directly. Lu Chongsheng immediately said. He then walked out of the cave dwelling with Xiaoxia. He told Lu Miaoge that he would be away for a while, and handed her a stack of first-grade supreme talismans. Chapter 306, The First Offspring completes the introduction of Qi into the body. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise his wife helped look after the Peace Talisman Hall. Upon hearing this, Lu Miaoge didn't ask any further questions. She simply asked Lu Chongsheng to be more careful and vigilant. Afterward, Lu Chongsheng and Xiaoxia disguised themselves, concealing their true appearance, and left Red Leaf Valley Market. Upon leaving the marketplace, the two roamed aimlessly. They slept in the wilderness, stargazed, admired the moon, listened to the rain, tasted tea, and practiced cultivation. In this manner, roaming without purpose and taking in the sights, they arrived at a worldly city. Disguised, the two, though still exuding an uncommon aura, did not shine too brightly or attract undue attention. Chongsheng, I want to eat candied hawthorn on a stick. Chongsheng, I want to eat mung bean cake. Chongsheng, do you think those two sugar figurines look like us? Walking through the bustling city, Xiaoxia was like a lively and radiant young girl. Gone was her previous aloof and serene fairy-like demeanor. She held Lu Chongsheng's hand, moving through the streets with delight etched across her face. Now looking here, now there. Whenever she saw something tasty or fun, she would grab Lu Chongsheng's hand, a look of coquettish entreaty and hopeful expectancy on her face. Just like an ordinary young girl from the secular world. This must be Xiyu's true nature, Lu Chongqing thought to himself as he watched her. He mused that cultivation, especially practicing the supreme forgetful love technique, really had a significant impact on a person. All right, well bye, Lu Chongqing amiably responded to Xiaoxia's requests. There was not a trace of impatience on his face. He bought her anything she wanted. If Xiaoxia couldn't carry an item, he helped her carry it. If she took a few bites and left the rest, he took it to try. If it tasted good, he had some, if not, it was discarded. The two of them, just like a loving couple from the secular world, enjoyed themselves in the city. Last time, I spoke of how I used my life as an invitation card to respectfully welcome the young master into the martial arts world. The two wandered leisurely to a footbridge. Xiaoxia, upon seeing someone's storytelling, immediately took an interest and pulled Lu Chongqing over to listen. Under the bridge, an old man in a robe was speaking animatedly. This prince of the Northern Territory, guarded by Sword Divine, stepped out of the Northern Territory and into the martial arts world, thinking that the sky was high and the birds could fly freely. Yet, this world of martial arts was not as splendid and colorful as it seemed to this young prince, but was fraught with dangers because the moment he entered the martial arts world, today, this old man will leave the story here. If you want to know what happens next, come again tomorrow, said the robed old man before bowing out half an hour later. A young girl around the age of 12 came forward, carrying a copper basin, clearly expecting money. However, only a few well-dressed people scattered around tossed some copper coins into the basin, leaving the young girl looking disappointed. Xiaoxia, seeing this, gently tugged at Lu Chongqing's sleeve. Good performance deserves a reward. Lu Chongqing smiled, instantly turned a silver ingot into fragments. He then dropped a few silver fragments into the copper basin. The sound of the fragments hitting the basin drew attention from onlookers. No one expected such generosity. The little girl was stunned. She and her grandfather had never received such a substantial reward while storytelling at the footbridge. Arya, have you not thanked your benefactor yet? The storytelling elder saw this and quickly stepped forward, pulling the little girl to bow deeply, saying, "Thank you, young master, thank you benefactor." No need for that, Lu Chongqing gently waved off and, taking Xiaoxia's hand, turned to leave. Chongqing, what that old gentleman was saying was quite interesting. I wonder what will happen to that young master afterward, Xiaoxia said with a giggle, excitedly discussing the story's potential developments with Lu Chongqing. As she spoke, she spotted a fortune-telling stall nearby and, once again intrigued, pulled Lu Chongqing to have their fortunes told. But such fortune-telling would naturally not reveal any hidden great master from the dust of the world. Seeing Lu Chongqing and Xiaoxia as if they were a husband and wife, the fortune-teller offered a bunch of auspicious words. Xiaoxia, listening to these words, was also quite happy. So, the two of them spent more than half a month playing around the worldly city. That night, accompanied by soft mournful sobs, Lu Chongqing and Xiaoxia completed their cultivation. Chongqing, I'm ready for foundation establishment, Xiaoxia said, draped over Lu Chongqing's body like mud, in a quiet voice. Lu Chongqing was slightly taken aback. He had long anticipated this day. He asked, when are you planning to undergo foundation establishment? He knew that when Xiaoxia spoke those words, it meant she had made up her mind and had overcome the tribulation of emotions. 3 months later, on the night of the full moon, she replied. Then we will undergo foundation establishment together. Xiaoxia lifted her head slightly, her beautiful eyes gazing at Lu Chongqing, her face suffused with a blush, and she was stunningly beautiful. Okay, Lu Chongqing nodded and didn't say anything more. He knew too much talking was pointless. He also didn't want to say too much and affect Xiaoxia's mood or her foundation establishment. After all, in this world, cultivation is the paramount path. Given the current situation of their identities, there was no way he could bring this beauty home to raise children. So, once his own strength was about right, it would be all the same to bring her home as his bride. As for the supreme forgetful love technique, in Lu Changsheng's view, if he could melt her heart once, he could do it a second time. "Don't you have anything you want to say to me?" asked Xianxia. Regarding Lu Changsheng's prompt agreement, she pursed her lips. "Overcoming the emotional tribulation is a good thing, moreover, I will respect your choice," Lu Changsheng said softly. "Man is not vegetation, who can be without passion?" Having spent a year with Xianxia, who was as cold as the moon yet lively and alluring, he was very fond of her. In these circumstances, he certainly wouldn't let her go. Chapter 307, The First Offspring completes the introduction of qi into the body. Moreover, he was still owed a favor by the other party. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise, thank you, Changsheng. Xianxia pursed her lips as she spoke. She too felt somewhat apprehensive in her heart, worrying that Lu Changsheng would ask her to stay. Fearful that under Lu Changsheng's persuasion, she would find it hard to cut through her emotional ties, to ascending beyond all affections. In this year of cultivation, she had realized that she had less of the stubborn obsession for breakthroughs. She had begun to grow more sentimental, prone to daydreaming. In Lu Changsheng's presence, she would feel joy, worry, sadness, grief, and affection. This had helped her thoroughly comprehend her emotional tribulation, to understand the concept of transcending all emotions. What she needed to do now was to unsheath her sword and sever her ties, to seek the path to the ultimate truth beyond the 7 emotions and 6 desires. "Shiyu, where do you plan to go for your foundation establishment?" Lu Changsheng asked aloud. Foundation establishment couldn't be attempted just anywhere. At the very least, one would need a second-grade spiritual vein with an abundance of spiritual energy. Since he had always concealed his true cultivation level and strength, it was inconvenient for him to undertake foundation establishment in the Red Leaf Valley Market. Moreover, the cave dwellings in the Red Leaf Valley Market only held inferior second-grade spiritual energy. This spiritual energy was only sufficient for cultivation practice. To attempt a breakthrough to foundation establishment, it was significantly lacking. Furthermore, the breakthrough to foundation establishment involved a large disturbance, which could affect the marketplace's natural spiritual energy. Most marketplaces would not readily agree to host someone's attempt to break through to foundation establishment. Previously, my master gave me a token so that I can go to Qingyun Market and rent a second-order top-quality cave mansion. A second-order top-quality cave mansion is more than enough for us to attempt foundation establishment, Xianxia told Lu Changsheng. She had already considered this matter thoroughly beforehand. For her own foundation establishment, she could return to Qingyun sect, where there was a third-grade spiritual vein. But Lu Changsheng was not a disciple of the Qingyun sect. He couldn't go there for his foundation establishment. For ordinary cultivators looking to rent a second-order top-quality spiritual vein dwelling, the only option would be to go to one of the 3 great immortal cities. However, the 3 great immortal cities were far away and exceedingly troublesome to reach. Thus, she considered the largest cultivation marketplace under the Qingyun sect. "All right, then we shall head to the Qingyun market," Lu Changsheng nodded as he heard this. He too had heard of the Qingyun market. He knew it was the largest marketplace under the Qingyun sect. It was even larger than the 9 Dragons market where he had been before. Such marketplaces typically do not open their second-order dwellings to the public. If it were not for Xianxia, he would indeed have no way to rent such a top-quality second-order cave mansion. He might have had to go to an immortal city to undertake his foundation establishment. Shortly after, the two of them left the secular world behind and set out towards the Qingyun market. Lu Changsheng glanced at the map. From their location to the Qingyun market was a journey of over 10,000 miles. However, neither he nor Xianxia were in a rush. They continued on, enjoying their journey as if they were sightseeing or on a leisurely outing. When nearing the Qingyun market, the two of them, having disguised their appearance and concealed their cultivation aura, even ran into 3 robber cultivators. But these were only 3 energy refinement late-stage robber cultivators. Facing these 3 robber cultivators, Lu Changsheng naturally showed no mercy, earning a little extra on the side. Now at the peak of qi refinement, his strength was comparable to that of a foundation establishment cultivator. Together with Xianxia, as long as they didn't encounter a foundation establishment cultivator, they generally wouldn't run into any trouble. Besides, as long as they didn't come across foundation establishment cultivators like the red-robed youth they had encountered before, they could take down an average foundation establishment cultivator with their full strength and techniques. After a month's time, Lu Chongsheng and Xianxia arrived at the Qingyun market. The entire marketplace was centered around a precipitous mountain, surrounded by mist, reaching high into the clouds. The mountain was encircled by a basin-like area, bordered by several large mountains, making it inaccessible to ordinary people. Qingyun Market. Xianxia and Lu Chongsheng looked at the distant peak, steering their flying artifact towards the marketplace entrance. The entrance was bustling with countless cultivators, much like the Nine Dragons Market, with an endless stream of people queuing up. Just then, a surge of spiritual power flowed into Lu Chongsheng's body, accompanied by the sound of a system notification. Congratulations to the host, your first offspring has completed the beginning phases of cultivation, entering the path of immortality. Bloodline effect, 5% increase in the likelihood of offspring having a spiritual root. Plus, 1 lucky draw chance. My first offspring has started his cultivation journey. Lu Chongsheng was slightly startled upon hearing this sudden system notification before it dawned on him that his son, Lu Xianji, had completed the initial phase of cultivation. The last time he returned to Qingzhou Mountain, his wife Lu Miaoyun had mentioned that Lu Xianji was ready to start cultivating. At that time, Lu Chongsheng didn't have the time, so he left Lu Miaoyun to handle it. As for his son completing the initial phase of cultivation so quickly, Lu Chongsheng wasn't surprised. Over the years, he hadn't visited the White Jade Tower, and aside from his own cultivation expenses, his biggest expenditure was on his children. For Lu Xianji, everything had been of the spiritual kind since childhood, eating spirit rice, taking spirit meals. At the age of 6, he even began spending spirit stones to buy elixir medicines that consolidated and nourished the foundation. His conditions were far more privileged than those of the Lu family's ordinary descendants. If his son had taken as long as he, the father, had, 10 months, to complete the initial phase of cultivation, that indeed would have been strange. I didn't expect that the start of my child's cultivation journey would not only entitle me to a lucky draw but also increase the chances of my future offspring having a spiritual root, although only by 5%, which is a bit little, but this probability can probably still be increased, Lu Chongsheng mused as he looked at the system notification. He wasn't overly excited about the lottery draw as he had done it many times before. However, he did find the passive increase in his offspring's likelihood of having a spiritual root appealing. After all, even with selective breeding, the chances of his children possessing a spiritual root were not especially high. Chapter 308, Lottery, Dao Soldier Soy Mother. _1, Chongsheng, what's wrong? Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Li Xiaoxia saw that Lu Chongsheng had suddenly fallen into a daze and asked aloud. It's my first time seeing such a huge marketplace, I'm a bit amazed. Lu Chongsheng immediately came back to his senses and responded offhandedly. He no longer looked at the system interface. I've only been to this Qingyun market once myself. I can't even imagine how bustling the 3 great immortal cities must be. Upon hearing this, Xiaoxia said the following. Shortly thereafter, the two queued up to enter the marketplace. After paying 10 spirit stones and registering their information quickly, they received tokens and entered the market. Xiaoxia then started to introduce the layout of Qingyun Market to Lu Chongsheng. The market is divided into the outer city, inner city, and core area. The outer city is a gathering place for poor and ordinary loose cultivators. As for the inner city, it depends on the area. The marketplace's shops, inns, stations, residential areas, and so on, are all concentrated here. As for the core area, it was the peak they had seen before that pierced the skies. A portion at the foot of the core area's mountain has cave mansions open to the public. The second-order top-quality cave mansion Xianxia spoke of was also on this mountain. The two made their way into the inner city. Looking at the bustling shops on both sides made Lu Chongqing mentally prepare to deal with the young man in the red robe's illicit gains in the marketplace after his foundation establishment. He hadn't been to Nine Dragons Market in a year. So the red-robed youth's loot had always been on him, unprocessed. Furthermore, after foundation establishment, the Seven Luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture could break through to the second level, and he could condense the Seven Luminaries' heart lamp within his body. This Seven Luminaries' heart lamp could also be cast into a physical magic artifact, serving as a life-bound spiritual artifact. The materials needed to cast a life-bound spiritual artifact might be directly available in this Qingyun market. After a brief stroll in the inner city, they headed towards the central peak of the marketplace. Kaiyun Peak, Xianxia, needs to rent a second-order top-quality cave mansion. Upon reaching the core area and finding the person responsible for renting cave mansions, Xianxia showed her true face, presented her token, and spoke. Sister Xiao is renting a cave mansion, may I ask for what purpose? If you're secluding yourself to impact your cultivation level, we currently have an upper-grade A cave mansion available, but if you're merely practicing temporarily, a B-ranked cave mansion would be sufficient for Sister Xiao, said the person, whose surname was Han, and appeared to be in his 40s or 50s, a disciple of Qingyun's sect as well. After checking the token, he immediately replied cordially. To impact my cultivation level, hence the need to rent a second-order top-quality A cave mansion, said Xianxia. Alright, Sister Xiao, a second-order top-quality A cave mansion is 500 spirit stones per year, Han said. Even for their own people, they still had to pay with spirit stones to rent, though the price was already considered cheap. After all, the cave mansion Lu Chongqing rented in Red Leaf Valley Market could almost be rented for 100 spirit stones. Thank you for your trouble, Brother Han. Xianxia took out the spirit stones. The other party didn't say much else, quickly helping them with the formalities and explaining some matters. I wonder if Sister Xiao is making this breakthrough to foundation establishment for herself, or is renting the cave mansion for a friend. If people found out that Shiyu Fairy of Kaiyun Peak is actually spending time in the same room with a man. Tsk. After Xianxia and Lu Chongqing left, this Han sighed and shook his head. Although had never met Xianxia, he had heard of her name and reputation. After all, she was a disciple of a nascent soul immortal. Not only was she incredibly beautiful, but she was also exceptionally talented and had a modicum of fame in Qingyun sect. However, since this person is a friend of Fairy Shiyu, he must also be quite young. To dare to go for foundation establishment at this age, he must be no ordinary person. I wonder if he'll succeed in foundation establishment. A trace of envy and a hint of melancholy appeared in Han's eyes. Had been appointed to handle renting in this marketplace. Although his status and treatment were good, without an opportunity, foundation establishment was nearly hopeless. Therefore, seeing someone younger come to attempt foundation establishment, he felt quite sentimental. Xianxia and Lu Chongqing came to a misty part of the mountain waste. Utilizing the token for the restriction, they opened the gate of the cave mansion. The cave mansion wasn't large, roughly 100 square meters or so. Inside, the spiritual energy was dense and miasmic, nearly forming a thin mist. Is this what a second-order top-quality cave mansion looks like? Lu Chongqing took in the dense spiritual energy, feeling as if he were floating on air, his whole body suffused with a smooth sensation. It was his first time renting a second-order cave mansion. Whether in Jianghu Valley or Red Leaf Valley Market, he had only used lower-grade spirit veins of the second rank. He could tell that this cave mansion was not merely second-order top quality but also had formations that gathered spiritual energy to the extreme. This A-ranked cave mansion is specifically used for cultivation breakthroughs, so it concentrates a lot of spiritual energy. Once the breakthrough is completed, the spiritual energy will thin out and need to be condensed again, Xianxia explained. Although she had never been to such a cave mansion, she had access to second-order top-quality spirit veins at Kaiyun Peak. She knew what a second-order top-quality spirit vein was like. Lu Chongsheng nodded slightly and checked the interior of the cave mansion. He designated a bedroom and a practice room, with a simple stone table and stone bed. It was very Spartan. But this was typical for a cave mansion. As long as it was livable, it was acceptable. Since he had a little over a month until foundation establishment, they didn't practice day and night as usual. After a short time together, they both sat cross-legged and adjusted their qi, spirit, and mentality. Lu Chongsheng wasn't in a rush to tune his state. In his mind, he silently called out, "System, I want to draw a prize." Immediately, the familiar system roulette wheel appeared. "Start the draw." Lu Changsheng's expression remained utterly calm, his mental spirit stirred slightly. And soon, a flash of golden light appeared on the wheel and began to spin rapidly. After a while, the golden light gradually settled on other. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Dao Soldier Golden Armor Beam Mother. The reward has been dispatched to the system space, the host can check it at any time. Chapter 309, Lottery, Dao Soldier Soy Mother. A golden bean the size of an egg emerged from the big wheel, accompanied by a system notification sound. Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron M, Lease, Dao Soldier, Golden Armor Bean Mother. Lu Chongsheng saw the reward from this lottery draw and his eyebrows raised slightly. He had no idea what this Dao Soldier was. He looked at the Golden Armor Bean Mother in the system space. Dao Soldier, Golden Armor Bean Mother, Quality, 3rd Rank, Description, a Spirit Plant Class Dao Soldier cultivated by the Golden Armor Sect, refined through secret techniques. It can transform into a 2nd Rank Golden Armor Warrior, and through planting and cultivation, it can propagate spirit beans. The beans germinate in 3 years, grow leaves in another 3, flower in the next, and bear beans in the last set of 3 years. A spirit plant class Dao Soldier that can turn into a 2nd Rank Golden Armor Warrior? Lu Chongsheng, looking at the description of the Golden Armor Bean Mother in the system space, showed a hint of interest. Based on this introduction, he roughly guessed what this Dao Soldier was. It should be similar to a puppet or a demon beast. This Golden Armor Bean Mother could transform into a 2nd Rank Golden Armor Warrior, which in Lu Changsheng's view, should be equivalent to the strength of a puppet or demon beast at the foundation establishment stage. What interested Lu Chongsheng the most was that this Golden Armor Bean Mother could propagate spirit beans through planting and cultivation. Although he didn't know what use these spirit beans had, he found it very interesting. After all, if it were just the combat power of the 2nd rank, in Lu Changsheng's view, it certainly didn't match the quality of the 3rd rank. But Xianxia was still there. It wasn't convenient for him to extract the Bean Mother from the system space out of thin air to check the detailed information now. He planned to take a closer look at this Golden Armor Bean Mother when he had time. Immediately after, Lu Chongsheng gathered his mental spirit and sat down cross-legged with his eyes closed. He operated the 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture and began to adjust his condition. At the same time, his thoughts in his mind started to flow. Scenes from his youth before his memories awakened. Scenes after awakening his memories at the Qingyun sect's heart-questioning platform. The disappointment in his heart when he failed to be chosen by the immortal sects. The fear of death when he encountered the Chen family's ambush on his way to Qingzhou Mountain. The excitement and joy in his heart when he married Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, Lu Qing'er, and when his first son, Lu Pingan, was born. With the system, obtaining 2nd rank talisman making, maintaining caution, and displaying his skills. These scenes, like fleeting glimpses, appeared in Lu Changsheng's mind, as vivid as if before his eyes. After a long while, Lu Changsheng's thoughts gradually calmed down. In his view, although the past decade had not been easy, it hadn't been particularly arduous either. He had no regrets or obsessions in his heart. He felt clear-minded, spiritually fulfilled, and full of hope for the future. Although Xiaoxia's situation had some impact on him, with the system by his side, he was full of confidence in his future. He didn't consider it a troublesome matter, nor one that needed too much worry. At worst, he would just wait until he achieved core formation. As long as he reached core formation, he could legitimately visit the Qingyun sect to ask for her hand in marriage. Furthermore, he, Lu Changsheng, also had a debt of gratitude to a nascent soul immortal. So passed half a month. Lu Changsheng awoke from meditation, opening his eyes. He felt that his energy and spirit were at their peak, his condition perfect. He was ready to attempt foundation establishment at any moment. Changsheng, there are only 10 days left until the night of the full moon, which is when I plan to attempt foundation establishment. If you need more time to prepare, we can wait until next month. Xiaoxia also woke up, opened her beautiful eyes, and said to Lu Changsheng. Attempting foundation establishment was a major event. The condition was extremely important. Some people, in order to be cautious, would even sit in meditation for years, waiting for a soul-inspiring opportunity. She was waiting for the night of the full moon, the time when Yin energy condensed. But this timing wasn't necessarily suitable for Lu Changsheng. "I'm already prepared, ready at any time," Lu Changsheng said with a light laugh. His voice was laced with a confidence that suggested he held a winning hand. In front of Xiaoxia, he didn't conceal his confident and spirited demeanor too much. "Good," Xiaoxia responded with a faint smile, noticing Lu Changsheng's confident appearance. During this time, not only had Lu Changsheng gained a deeper understanding of her, but she had also seen a different side of Lu Changsheng. "Shiyu, how are your preparations, do you feel confident?" Lu Changsheng asked Xiaoxia. He was almost completely confident about his own foundation establishment, full of absolute conviction. But he still didn't quite understand Xiaoxia's situation. 50%, Xiaoxia replied. Xiaoxia spoke softly. "Only a 50% chance." Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng's heart gave a slight jolt. 50% is already enough. Xiaoxia calmly stated, her entire being exuding an ethereal and transcendent charm. "Since you say it's enough, Shiyu, it must be sufficient." Lu Changsheng did not probe further. He had long noticed that Xiaoxia would from time to time reveal that noble and sacred, cold and detached demeanor, akin to the 9 heavens' bright moon. He knew she was still influenced by her cultivation technique. This 50% confidence probably wasn't a problem with the 3 challenges in the foundation establishment, in lifting the Tao platform. It was likely about the emotional tribulation. "Shiyu, is your cultivation nearing perfection?" Lu Changsheng immediately inquired. "I'm 1 step away. When establishing my foundation, I hope Lu Lang can assist me." Xiaoxia let her ethereal demeanor fade, revealing a sweet smile as she softly spoke. "Shiyu, tell me the truth, does this step really exist? If it doesn't, I won't mind. Moreover, with my current situation, I don't need any secret technique to successfully establish my foundation," Lu Changsheng said. He naturally knew what his assistance entailed. When they were intimate before, Xiaoxia had mentioned that when striking at foundation establishment, it would also be the final step in her cultivation. At that time, she would also help him establish his foundation through a secret technique. But deep down, Lu Changsheng vaguely felt that her cultivation was almost sufficient, and whether this step existed or not didn't really matter. "No." Xiaoxia's lips revealed a pure and sweet smile, like that of an innocent young girl. Lu Changsheng was taken aback. He hadn't expected Xiaoxia to be so forthright. "Since Lu Lang is asking, Shiyu naturally won't deceive you." Xiaoxia happily smiled, letting her delicate body fall into Lu Changsheng's embrace, cuddling cozily into him. Resting her cheek against his chest, she spoke softly, "But Shiyu simply wishes to do so, to help Lu Lang. Because Shiyu wants to tell Lu Lang that my love for you, although it started from cultivation, does not end with cultivation." Xiaoxia lifted her head slightly, her clear beautiful eyes meeting Lu Changsheng's gaze. Then you should also know that the fate between you and me is now not something that can be severed just because you say so. Lu Changsheng had restrained himself from speaking his mind before, worried that it would affect Xiaoxia's state of mind, not mentioning many things. Now that she had so candidly revealed her intentions, Lu Changsheng felt less concern about these matters. Shiyu is well aware. Xiaoxia lifted her head, her face full of love as she kissed him and said, with Lu Lang having so many beautiful wives and concubines, in time, you will naturally forget about Shiyu. And if I can't forget? Lu Changsheng asked. Changsheng, I'm sorry. Xiaoxia was taken aback, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke. There's nothing to be sorry about, Shiyu. As long as you can successfully establish your foundation, they'll comply with whatever you wish. Lu Changsheng quickly reassured her, worried he might affect her mentality, impacting her foundation establishment. After all, to him, these matters were not as important as cultivation at the moment. With cultivation, there would be a future, but if cultivation failed, there would be even more trouble ahead. Thank you, Changsheng. Xiaoxia said softly. There's no need for such words between us. Lu Changsheng held her delicate face, capturing her lips with his. At the core area of Qingyun Market. All A-grade cave dwellings are rented out. I remember there was one left before, wasn't there? A 24 or 25-year-old youth, handsome and majestic, with a spirited air about him, inquired of Steward Han in front of him. Young Master Meng, last month Fairy Shiyu from Kaiyun Peak came and rented that A-grade cave dwelling. Steward Han looked at the white-robed youth and respectfully replied. Shiyu junior sister, I recall she went down the mountain for experience, didn't she? Besides, if she wanted to strike for a higher cultivation level, she could have just returned to our sect and make the attempt under the protection of the sect leader. Upon hearing this, the youth furrowed his brows slightly. Alright, since Shiyu junior sister has rented it, let it be. Arrange a B-grade cave dwelling for me. The young man didn't dwell on it and simply waved his hand, instructing directly. Yes, young Master Meng, please wait a moment, I will arrange it for you now. Steward Han immediately responded. Chapter 310, Foundation Establishment, Yin Yang 5 Elements Dao Foundation. _1 May, also called the Gao Month. Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron M, lease on the 15th of May, this day is also known as the Day of Great Yin's Coalescence. As night fell, a crescent moon was slowly rising. In the Qingyun marketplace, nestled on the mountainside of Core Peak, within a cave dwelling. Changsheng. Xiaoxia looked at the man before her, Lu Changsheng, and called out softly. She was dressed in a moon-white garment. The curves of her lithe figure were tastefully concealed by the attire. Yet her beauty was still obvious. Underneath the skirt, the outlines of her long, straight, jade-like legs were faintly visible. Her delicate feet adorned with white silk stockings and embroidered shoes appeared untouched by dust. At this moment, Xiaoxia reverted to her formerly detached demeanor. Her bearing was cold and saintly, like the mysterious moon in the 9 heavens. Her devastating beauty carried an aloof grace that seemed untouched by worldly taint. She was like the everlasting ice and snow, inspiring reverence at a glance. Let's begin. Lu Changsheng gazed at Xiaoxia's bearing, nodded, and spoke no further. Xiaoxia's cool and luminous gaze met with Lu Changsheng's eyes, which shone like stars, clear and devoid of worldly desires. In the most secret depths of her heart, ripples of love began to stir. Her breath grew slightly erratic, betraying the fairy's inner turmoil. They locked eyes for a moment, and her soft, boneless, white hands reached out to encircle his neck. As stars shifted and oceans transformed, amidst the flowing water and falling flowers, a harmonious symphony of life began to play. The two of them listened to this silent symphony. Spirit and flesh started to merge into the rhythm of the symphony, making it increasingly hard to distinguish between each other. Outside the cave dwelling, under the endless night sky, the bright moon hung high. A fierce flood dragon soared from the abyss toward the bright moon, roaring as it went. In the face of the vicious flood dragon, the cool and luminous bright moon burst forth with dazzling light. However, under the flood dragon's assault, the cool and proud bright moon seemed to frown like a fairy, and with a soft chant, endless moonlight poured forth, merging into the flood dragon's body. The flood dragon, having absorbed the essence of the bright moon, hauled towards the sky, yearning to transform from a flood dragon into a true dragon. Changsheng. Inside the dwelling, although Xianxia maintained the dual cultivation stance, the passion that had adorned her beautiful face was now replaced by a noble and sacred radiance. Lu Changsheng said nothing. As the great moonlight from Xianxia surged into his body, his dantian seemed to be set aflame with towering waves, roaring continuously. This roaring was inaudible to others, but Lu Changsheng felt it clearly within himself, like thunder, rumbling mightily. He hadn't yet begun to initiate the foundation establishment, yet his seven-colored dantian was already roaring and churning. It seemed as if a myriad of golden light wished to condense from within the dantian. If I do not succeed, it would be a defiance of the natural order. Lu Changsheng felt this overwhelming and vast power, his eyes bright with a spirited gleam. With a gesture, a porcelain bottle from his storage bag fell into his hand. It was the foundation establishment elixir. His current condition for undertaking the foundation establishment, even without the elixir, held a 70 to 80% certainty of success. But even with the slightest risk, Lu Changsheng was unwilling to accept it. The foundation establishment elixir could not only harmonize the three barriers, enhancing the spiritual roots transformation and absorption of nature's spiritual energy, but it could also ensure that one would not suffer backlash in the event of a failed foundation establishment. If foundation establishment failed, at best one would be injured and their cultivation level would regress. At worst, the meridians and dantian could be damaged, leaving one crippled or even leading to the demise of one's cultivation path. Therefore, even with a 99% chance of success, Lu Changsheng would choose to consume the foundation establishment elixir for his breakthrough. Boom! As the foundation establishment elixir was ingested, Lu Changsheng's seven luminaries' great freedom sword scripture began to circulate within him, as spiritual power, like a tidal wave, converged towards his dantian, assaulting the barriers for foundation establishment. The spiritual energy within the cave also surged towards him like a raging tempest at this moment, forming a vortex of spiritual energy. Rumble. Simultaneously, the qi and blood within Lu Changsheng's body began to seethe tumultuously, rushing forth like mighty rivers and streams. First barrier of foundation establishment, the qi and blood barrier. This barrier required the infusion of immense nature's spiritual energy into one's meridians and dantian. If the body cannot withstand this process, foundation establishment would fail. This is why cultivators over the age of 60, whose bodies gradually age and qi and blood weaken, or those with disabilities and hidden illnesses, have almost no hope of establishing their foundation. Because they simply cannot bear such an infusion of immense spiritual energy. Lu Changsheng, having cultivated the 100 refinements treasure body art, possessed a fleshly body comparable to high-quality magic artifacts. Facing the spiritual energy tempest that swept through like a storm, he was like an ancient divine mountain, unshaken by wind and rain, standing tall and immovable. Second barrier of foundation establishment, the mana barrier. During the qi refinement realm, one transforms nature's spiritual energy into one's own spiritual power. But when initiating foundation establishment, one must transform this spiritual power into mana, converting from a gaseous to a liquid state. The purer and denser the spiritual power, the easier it is to liquefy and transform into mana. If one consumed too many elixir medicines during the qi refinement realm, or relied on breakthrough elixirs, tonic supplements, and other methods, it could lead to a base of spiritual power that's insubstantial and impure mana, making it hard to condense the Tao foundation. Lu Changsheng cultivated the orthodox level cultivation technique 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, thus his spiritual power was naturally extremely pure. While he relied on a constant intake of elixirs and often engaged in dual cultivation with women, 7 luminaries' sword chi was capable of refining away the elixir toxicity. Additionally, his dual cultivation was practiced with moderation, merely as a marital pleasure, and was not used as a means to enhance his cultivation level. Therefore, there wasn't a trace of insubstantiality in the foundation of his spiritual power, it was solid and unwavering. Furthermore, under the influence of the Golden Crow elixir's great sun essence and Xiaoxia's great Yin moonlight, he saw in his dantian that the essence of the great sun and the great Yin moonlight seemed to transform into a yin-yang fish, helping him swallow and refine nature's spiritual energy. Within his qi ocean, the rich gaseous spiritual power from the dantian was continuously being compressed into a liquid state, ready to transform his dantian into a true lake. The third barrier, Divine Sense Barrier. Previously, under Xiaoxia's guidance and with the aid of the Purple Mansion nurturing divine technique and Jade Soul Flower, he had already given birth to divine sense. Chapter 311, Foundation Establishment, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Tao Foundation. Although Lu Changsheng's divine sense only extended 3 feet, it was still divine sense nonetheless. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, least therefore, this challenge did not exist for him. Next is the transformation of the lake of mana into the true lake, the coalescing of the Tao Foundation. Having spent so much time with Xiaoxia, Lu Changsheng was exceedingly familiar with the process of foundation establishment. He knew that after passing the 3 challenges of foundation establishment, the most crucial step awaited. He would use his divine sense to precisely control his physical body and mana, transforming all the mist-like spiritual energy within his qi ocean core into liquid mana. This would then turn the lake of mana into the true lake and lift up the platform of the Tao, shedding his mortal shell. This step demanded not only the cultivator's spiritual root aptitude but also the external environment. If the spiritual root's aptitude was too poor, absorbing and transforming spiritual energy too slowly, there would be insufficient transformed liquid mana, preventing the coalescing of the Tao platform and leading to a failed foundation establishment. This is why most cultivators needed to rely on foundation establishment elixirs to build their foundation. Apart from the earth spirit root and heavenly spiritual root, even a superior grade spiritual root could fail the foundation establishment if one was not careful with absorbing and transforming spiritual energy. Lu Changsheng's current 5th grade spiritual root wasn't exceptional, but it wasn't so bad as to hold him back. Moreover, he also possessed half of a Gengjin body constitution. Furthermore, he was not only assisted by a foundation establishment elixir, but he also had the great sun essence of the Golden Crow elixir and Xiaoxia's supreme Yin moonlight. Boom! 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 Raging spiritual energy surged toward Lu Changsheng in a vast and mighty vortex that spanned dozens of feet. Inside his body, it was as if mountains crumbled and seas tsunamied with unceasing roars. Gaseous spiritual power continuously misted then liquefied into droplets of multicolored, crystalline mana. Each droplet of mana contained a power far greater than his river-like spiritual power. This was a qualitative difference. Like the difference between crude iron and steel refined 100 times over. As the gaseous mana lake gradually transformed into a liquid mana lake, the mana within surged and rolled, and a 7-colored jade disc slowly took shape. It was the yin-yang foundation base of the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture. However, just at this moment, suddenly, out of nowhere, Lu Changsheng saw a wisp of spirit-nurturing energy abruptly rush into his lake of mana. It allowed the great sun essence and supreme Yin moonlight, akin to twin fishes of Yin and Yang, to blend perfectly and rush together into the 7-colored jade disc. Someone is undergoing foundation establishment. Hiss, such a terrifying spiritual vortex, this is no ordinary person's foundation establishment effort. It must be a prodigy of the Qingyun sect. By the looks of it, they've reached the crucial moment of foundation establishment. The anomaly in nature's spiritual energy caused by Lu Changsheng's foundation establishment attracted the attention of many within and outside Core Peak. They realized someone was undergoing foundation establishment. And from the size and fluctuations of the spiritual vortex, they deduced that this person was far from ordinary. TSK, such a rare sight, this spiritual vortex. Is this fairy Shiyu attempting foundation establishment, or one of her friends? The steward Han immediately guessed that it was something related to Xiaoxia's dwelling when he saw the location of the spiritual vortex. While people in the Qingyun market did undergo foundation establishment from time to time, it was not a very large number. Moreover, a spiritual vortex of such magnificent grandeur was clearly a sign of a genius at work. Is it Sister Shiyu who is undergoing foundation establishment? It seems I should go and offer my congratulations. Halfway up the mountain, within a E-character cave dwelling, a spirited and vigorous young man opened his eyes, walked out of the cave dwelling, and muttered to himself upon seeing the spiritual vortex. Inside the dwelling, Fairy Xiaoxia, with her pure and radiant jade-like body, shone like the bright moon, adorned by a sacred glow of moonlight, her beauty beyond compare. She watched Lu Changsheng, who was attempting foundation establishment, and softly chanted, "The world abounds with troubling affections, yet the bright moon shines upon the true heart." In the supreme forgetful love technique's dreamy voyage, only the great Tao remains in the heart. A complexity briefly crossed her holy countenance. Then her expression settled into calm and detached tranquility, as if she had found liberation or acceptance. The supreme forgetful love technique, intangible and invisible, the restraint that troubled her for so long at her realm's bottleneck, dissipated like ice and snow at that moment with her acceptance. This change in her aura promptly gathered the surrounding spiritual vortex, and she began her attempt at foundation establishment. Just as Xiaoxia began her foundation establishment, what's going on here? Lu Changsheng looked at the yin-yang fishes that had entered his 7 luminaries foundation base. He could clearly sense that the originally misaligned Great Sun Essence and Supreme Yin Moonlight had achieved a perfect balance under the influence of the spirit-nurturing energy, and there was an addition of an abstruse and profound force. Together, these 3 forces merged into a Taiji yin-yang fish that swam within the 7 luminaries foundation base. As if within the 7-colored jade disk of the Tao Foundation, the powers of the solar and lunar luminaries were being absorbed and devoured by the Taiji yin-yang fish, causing Lu Changsheng's 7 luminaries Tao Foundation to vibrate and resonate, starting to coalesce anew. Could this wisp of energy actually enhance the quality of the Tao Foundation just like the Great Sun Essence and Supreme Yin Moonlight? Lu Changsheng looked at the changes in his Tao Foundation with a mix of amazement and doubt. He wasn't surprised by the inclusion of the Great Sun Essence or the Supreme Yin Moonlight into the platform of the Tao, since Xiaoxia had previously told him that the Great Sun Essence was a rare treasure of heaven and earth. It could solidify his foundation at a deeper level, and even take his 7 luminaries Tao Foundation to the next level. The same was true of her Supreme Yin Moonlight. However, he had not anticipated that the wisp of spirit-nurturing energy, which a nascent soul female cultivator had once left within him and that he had nearly forgotten, would also surge forth at this moment. Initially, the wisp of spirit-nurturing energy had a warming effect on the body, but later on, there was no significant effect. He had spent some time researching it, consulting numerous texts to see what this energy was, but after a long search without finding any relevant information, he remained unclear about the nature of the energy. Seeing that it did not affect him negatively and with no way to handle it, he had let it be, slowly forgetting about it. Chapter 312, Foundation Establishment, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Tao Foundation. Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron M, lease unexpectedly, at the final moment of his foundation establishment, the spirit-nurturing energy unexpectedly emerged, allowing the Great Sun Essence and Taiyin Moon Essence to merge perfectly. He could feel that before this moment, the Great Sun Essence and the Taiyin Moon Essence were not harmonious, failing to achieve balance. It was under the influence of this spirit-nurturing energy that they could. Moreover, he vaguely felt that this spirit-nurturing energy was even more formidable than the Great Sun Essence and even Xiaoxia's Taiyin Moon Essence. I wonder what my Tao Foundation can transform into under this power. Lu Chongqing watched the seven-colored jade disc-like Dao foundation in the Dan Lake humming and trembling, witnessing his own foundation base recondensing. As for what kind of foundation base his original seven-colored jade disc-like base would turn into, Lu Chongqing had no idea. After all, Xianxia had only roughly explained a few types of foundation bases to him. But when it comes to foundation bases, even if they are the same, they vary based on different people's cultivation techniques and conditions. One can't generalize. However, Lu Chongqing knew that he now needed a massive amount of spiritual energy to support the recondensation of his foundation base. Instantly, his entire being became like a black hole, wholeheartedly devouring the nature's spiritual energy from all directions, refining the spiritual energy and gathering it into his foundation base. Rumble. In the Dan Lake, the foundation table shaped like a seven-colored jade disc grew brighter and more dazzling. In this process, his seven luminaries Dao foundation, due to the sun and moon sectors being devoured by the yin-yang fish, gradually turned its seven colors into five. And after swallowing the sun and moon sectors, the small yin-yang fish that had grown significantly larger swam out from the jade disc, circulating around it. At this moment, the new Dao foundation began to slowly take shape. The foundation base with its yin-yang five elements light slowly circulated, filled with profound mysteries, and gently rose from the Dan Lake. Boom, 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 as the foundation table rose, Lu Chongqing's heart involuntarily started to beat faster. His meridians expanded, his bones creaked noisily, and his blood surged like great rivers and oceans. Each heartbeat brought forth an increase in his entire Bodhis energy, growing in might from inside out. Boom! Eventually, Lu Chongqing's foundation table lifted off from the Dan Lake and spiraled to his Qi ocean core. The foundation table displayed colors of the five elements, surrounded by swirling yin-yang energies. In an instant, rays of light burst forth from the foundation base, radiating so intensely they almost penetrated his body. Accompanied by the vast rays of light, an indescribable mana spread out at this moment, causing Lu Chongqing's hair to flutter without any wind. Lifting the foundation base, shedding his mortal coil. This massive force of the yin-yang five elements circulated within Lu Chongqing's body. It cleansed his marrow and polished his skin, scouring every inch of flesh and muscle. Lu Chongqing, who cultivated the 100 refinements treasure body art, already had an immaculate body, but at this moment, still a considerable amount of impurities were expelled. Time passed, no one knew how long. As the inner brilliance dissipated, the transformation ended, and Lu Chongqing opened his eyes. Foundation establishment, succeeded. His pupils seemed to circulate with the yin-yang energies, emitting blinding rays of light. The impurities on his body dispersed, releasing a refreshing fragrance. Is this what foundation establishment feels like? Lu Chongqing looked at his pale, translucent body, now reborn from bone to flesh. Feeling the power filling his entire body, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Foundation establishment was always a small goal he had strived for. Now, he had finally taken that step. In this world, he could at least protect himself to a certain degree. With my current strength, I could probably kill my former self with a slap of my hand. Lu Chongqing felt an unprecedented surge of power within him, and he thought to himself. After his breakthrough in foundation establishment, he felt his mana had increased more than tenfold. Moreover, at the moment of his breakthrough, the profound origin bead within him also spun wildly, inhaling and exhaling spiritual energy. It gradually transformed the stored spiritual power into mana. His internal mana had nearly tripled from its original level. Right then, Lu Chongqing felt better and more confident than ever before. Even if he faced the young man in the red robe from before, he could fight against him. As for killing him, it was hard to say. After all, his licking the packet revealed that the opponent had a backup. And he had just broken through foundation establishment, still lacking the appropriate techniques for the foundation establishment stage. My divine sense is almost at 18 zhang. That's my only weakness now. Lu Chongsheng then checked the status of his divine sense. Normal cultivators just breaking through to foundation establishment typically have a divine sense of around 10 zhang. His 18 feet stature, although far surpassing the average level, was indeed a weak point compared to his physical body and mana. Immediately after, Lu Chongsheng looked towards the Dao platform within his Qi Ocean Dantian. The Dao platform was like a jade disc, exhibiting 5 colors, surrounded by the yin-yang energies. Yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, so this is my Dao foundation. Lu Chongsheng, gazing at his own Dao platform, displayed a somewhat odd expression on his face. Upon seeing his Dao foundation, he instinctively knew the information about his own foundation. The originally powerful and dominant 7 luminaries foundation base, after transforming into the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, not only had more formidable mana. The Supreme Yin and Supreme Yang, under the fusion of the Great Sun essence, the Supreme Yin Moon essence, and the Spirit Nurturing energy, had turned into the yin-yang energies. These yin-yang energies had 2 effects. One was, that they doubled the effectiveness of his dual cultivation. The other was, by using dual cultivation, to consume his own yin-yang energies to repair and refine someone else's Dao foundation. Dao foundations are categorized as fragmented, flawed, flaw-free, and perfect. His yin-yang energies could repair the flaws and fractures found in fragmented and flawed foundations, ultimately refining them into flaw-free ones. This effect could be said to be exceedingly against the heavens. Even though Lu Chongsheng did not have much understanding of foundation establishment, he knew that all heavenly treasures capable of repairing Dao foundation flaws were immensely precious and rarely seen. And the fact that his consumption of yin-yang energies could repair such flaws, even refining them into flawless foundations, was truly against the heavens. This Dao foundation effect, is it not tempting me to switch cultivation techniques? Lu Chongsheng, watching the yin-yang energies flowing on his Dao platform, twitched the corners of his mouth. He thought about the yin-yang harmony technique he possessed. A peripheral sect-level cultivation technique that primarily focused on dual cultivation. Of course, if he switched to the yin-yang harmony technique, relying on the effects of the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, his cultivation level would progress rapidly. But he only allowed himself to think about it. The yin-yang harmony technique was far inferior to the 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture. Although the cultivation speed was much faster, the foundation would be much weaker. Moreover, now that he had established his foundation, switching to another cultivation technique would be very troublesome. If he really switched to another cultivation technique, he might lose 30 to 50% of his cultivation level. However, the second effect of the yin-yang energies made Lu Chongsheng feel quite pleased. He was well aware that among his current wives and concubines, hardly a few could achieve foundation establishment. At the moment, only Lu Miaoge was hopeful for foundation establishment. But even if she succeeded, it was very likely she would have a flawed foundation. Forging a flawless foundation would be difficult. In such a situation, his Dao foundation effect came into play. If his wives and concubines could forcibly establish their foundations in the future, even if the foundations were fragmented, he could still lend a hand. If I were to make this effect known, I fear countless female cultivators attempting foundation establishment would be willing to present themselves at my doorstep, even willing to have children for it. After all, being able to refine and repair a foundation is also a chance for core formation. But such things definitely cannot be revealed. Otherwise, I might end up being captured by some old monster and used as a tool. Lu Chongsheng thought to himself. He also knew this matter absolutely should not be revealed carelessly. Now that I've established my foundation, shouldn't I compose a celebratory poem to enhance the occasion? After checking his own condition, an idea suddenly occurred to Lu Chongsheng. Just as he was racking his brains, ready to come up with a celebratory poem, he suddenly sensed that something was off with Xianxia beside him. Lu Chongsheng turned his gaze towards Xianxia, who was as cold and pure as the Guanghan fairy, with jade-like skin and bones, bereft of any thread, attempting foundation establishment. Noticing that she was at the point of condensing her Tao foundation. But something seemed amiss with her condition. The condensation of the Tao foundation appeared to have encountered some problems. Lack of spiritual energy. Lu Chongsheng immediately realized what the problem was. Logically, a second-rank high-grade cave dwelling should have been sufficient for the successful foundation establishment of both of them. But just now, during his breakthrough, he had condensed the 7 luminaries foundation base, then transformed it, recondensing the 7 luminaries foundation base into the Yin-Yang 5 elements foundation base. At the same time, the profound origin bead inside his body was frantically absorbing spiritual energy. It had nearly depleted over half of the cave dwelling's nature's spiritual energy. And at this moment, Xianxia also began her foundation establishment. Xianxia herself was condensing a perfect foundation base, which required far more of nature's spiritual energy than the average person. In this circumstance, the lack of sufficient spiritual energy from the cave dwelling made it difficult to support Xianxia's successful condensation of her Tao foundation. Chapter 313, The Idea of Establishing One's Own Family _1 Xianxia, unclothed and composed, sat cross-legged with a dignified and cool expression on her face. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, least she hadn't expected that, at the critical moment of foundation establishment, she would encounter a shortage of external spiritual energy. But once foundation establishment reached this step, it was impossible to stop, nor could she afford to. With a graceful motion of her hand, a heap of spirit stones clattered out from the storage bag, absorbing the spiritual energy within the stones. Lu Chongsheng could tell that most of these spirit stones were lower-grade spirit stones. Only a few were middle-grade spirit stones. This was normal. After all, Xianxia, no matter how wealthy, was merely an energy-refining cultivator. Without hesitation, Lu Chongsheng took out the hundreds of middle-grade spirit stones he had obtained from the red-robed youth. With a strong squeeze, he crushed each middle-grade spirit stone into powder, causing the spiritual energy to disperse. Then, another porcelain bottle appeared. Shiyu, Foundation Establishment Elixir. Lu Chongsheng poured the inferior Foundation Establishment Elixir from the bottle. He could see that Xianxia had not taken any Foundation Establishment Elixirs. Although he did not know why she hadn't prepared any Foundation Establishment Elixirs, given the current situation, he felt it was necessary to take one for safety's sake, even if it was an inferior one. Despite being inferior, at least it was better than nothing. Moreover, the inferior Foundation Establishment Elixir was only less effective in harmonizing the 3 aspects and transforming the absorbed spiritual energy. It could only increase the chances of successful foundation establishment by 10%. As for protecting the meridians and dantian, its efficacy was the same as a regular Foundation Establishment Elixir. It could ensure that a foundation establishment failure would not result in a backlash. Foundation Establishment Elixir? Xianxia's beautiful eyes widened slightly, surprised to see the Foundation Establishment Elixir in Lu Chongsheng's hand. She had seen Lu Chongsheng take one himself. She hadn't expected that Lu Chongsheng would still have another. After all, even within Qingyun sect's inner sect, obtaining a Foundation Establishment Elixir was not easy. Seeing the concerned look on Lu Chongsheng's face, Xianxia's calm heart rippled slightly. "No need," she said softly. Her cultivation of the supreme forgetful love technique was crucial for her foundation, depending on her state of mind. As long as her state of mind reached perfection, she was certain to succeed in foundation establishment without relying on external objects. That was why, despite her status, she could have applied for a Foundation Establishment Elixir but chose not to. Furthermore, it was just an external deficiency of nature's spiritual energy. It was not a complete absence of spiritual energy, which did not mean her foundation establishment was doomed to fail. Therefore, under these circumstances, she did not want to waste Lu Chongsheng's Foundation Establishment Elixir and owe him a favor. Concentrate on your foundation establishment. Despite Xianxia's resistance, Lu Chongsheng insisted, slapping his hand down. He pushed the foundation establishment elixir directly into Xiaoxia's mouth. While the elixir was precious, in his view, things were made to be used. Given Xiaoxia's precarious situation, if the elixir could stabilize matters, he certainly wouldn't hold back. Otherwise, if Xiaoxia failed her foundation establishment, he would feel uneasy about it. Boom! As the foundation establishment elixir entered her stomach, Xiaoxia immediately felt the power of the medicine increasing the spiritual pressure around her, accelerating the conversion and absorption of the surrounding spiritual energy. As she watched Lu Changsheng crush the middle-grade spirit stones one by one, she pressed her lips together, sighed softly in her heart, and closed her eyes to concentrate on foundation establishment. Thinking of breaking ties with me that easily? Not so simple. Thinking you could leave before birthing 3 children. Lu Changsheng clearly understood Xiaoxia's thoughts. Her affection for him was probably genuine, as was her desire to repay him for his assistance in cultivation and saving her life, thereby untangling their relationship. In such a case, how could Lu Changsheng simply let go? Who in the world is undergoing foundation establishment? The amount of spiritual energy they're drawing in is terrifying. Looking at this, foundation establishment should have ended by now, so why is it still continuing? This is going to affect the spiritual energy in our area. Could it be that this person is condensing the legendary perfect foundation base? Even with a perfect foundation base, the amount of spiritual energy involved wouldn't be this massive, nor continue for so long, right? The cultivators near Core Peak, looking at the vortex of spiritual energy swirling above, were bewildered with amazement and confusion. What's happening? The vortex of spiritual energy above Shiyu Jr. Sister's cave abode is still swirling, and the spiritual pressure is starting to rise again. That vortex of spiritual energy weakened just a moment ago, with a faint rosy glow spreading through it, evidence that someone had succeeded in foundation establishment. If that's the case, why is the spiritual pressure rising again as if someone is forming their Dao foundation anew? Could it be, 2 people are attempting foundation establishment simultaneously? Inside Cave Abode E, a young man looked toward the not-too-distant Cave Abode Jia, where a vortex of spiritual energy swirled above the sky, and frowned slightly. Report to Master Du, this number 9 Jia Cave Abode is rented by Fairy Shiyu of Kaiyun Peak, the steward at the Cave Abode rental place said to the grey-robed elder in front of him, with a face showing signs of age and a hint of the demeanor of an immortal, speaking respectfully. Kaiyun Peak, Xiaoxia. This elder was the false core immortal stationed at Qingyun Market. Seeing this unusual activity of spiritual energy, he also came to inquire who was undergoing foundation establishment. After all, the commotion of this foundation establishment was indeed a bit too large. Were it not for Qingyun Market having a large spirit vein, and that Core Peak spirit vein reached 2nd rank top grade, such intense activity of spiritual energy could affect the operation of the marketplace's great formation. Yes, Immortal. At that time, Fairy Shiyu was renting the cave abode along with a close friend and indicated it would be used for a realm breakthrough, stated the steward respectfully, without concealing anything. Although his cultivation level was only Qi refinement, having served as a steward in Qingyun Market for many years, he had seen many people attempt foundation establishment. He had a rough guess about the situation based on the abnormality of the spiritual energy and knowing that Xiaoxia had rented the cave abode with another person. Chapter 3:14, The Idea of Establishing One's Own Family. Master Du nodded slightly upon hearing this. He roughly understood that Xiaoxia came to Qingyun Market for her foundation establishment with a close friend. Otherwise, given Xiaoxia's situation, there was no need for her to come to the Qingyun Market for her foundation establishment. After understanding the situation, he didn't continue to inquire further. He transformed into a rainbow light and departed. And he ordered that no one should approach this cave dwelling, to avoid disturbing the situation inside. Time slowly passed. No one knew how much time had gone by. The vortex of nature's spiritual energy above the cave dwelling gradually dissipated, with faint colored clouds permeating the air. It's done. In the bedroom, Lu Chongsheng looked at the enticingly beautiful jade-like body of Xianxia before him. Seeing the Foundation establishment's spiritual pressure surging around her, he immediately knew that Xianxia's Foundation establishment had been successful. A look of joy appeared on his face too. After all, he had worried because the deficiency of nature's spiritual energy had been caused by him. He feared that Xianxia's Foundation establishment might fail. However, just at that moment, a crack sound came from within Xianxia's body. Pfft! Xianxia spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Xiyu, what's wrong with you? Lu Chongsheng, seeing Xianxia vomiting blood, was taken aback and immediately supported her, asking with concern. He didn't know what was going on with her. Why would she vomit blood and have her qi in disorder just after completing her Foundation establishment? Fine, Xianxia's beautiful eyes opened, revealing a complicated expression. Her supreme forgetful love technique had succeeded, yet it hadn't. Or rather, under Lu Changsheng's influence, her state of mind ultimately wasn't perfect, there was a flaw. This caused her newly established perfect Tao Foundation to crack at the base due to the flaw in her state of mind. A vast amount of spiritual energy leaked out from the crack in the Foundation base, overflowing from her body. You're in this state and still you say you're fine, Lu Chongsheng retorted with slight annoyance. He immediately grabbed Xianxia's wrist, preparing to check her physical condition. Normally, such close contact between cultivators to check each other's condition was considered rash. But over the past year, Lu Chongsheng and Xianxia had become very close. At this time, he naturally didn't care about such rashness or gender differences. Just as he grabbed Xianxia's wrist, Lu Chongsheng sensed her body undergoing a transformation under the purification of the Foundation base. But at the same time, spiritual energy was leaking out. Because my state of mind wasn't perfect, my Tao Foundation became damaged, Xianxia said softly, pursing her lips and speaking in a low voice as she saw the slightly angry look on Lu Changsheng's face, choosing not to hide it anymore. Maybe it was the flaw in her state of mind that made her less aloof when facing Lu Changsheng. The Foundation base is damaged? Lu Changsheng furrowed his brows slightly upon hearing this. He immediately sent a strand of his divine sense into Xianxia's body. Xianxia did not resist Lu Changsheng's actions. Instantly, Lu Changsheng's divine sense accessed the brilliantly shining foundational base in Xianxia's dantian. The foundational base was moon-white in its entirety. In the center of the base, a faint cyan moon circulated. It was Xianxia's supreme mysterious moon Tao Foundation. But at this moment, this perfect jade-like moon-white foundation base had a clear crack from which spiritual energy was leaking out. Even with a crack, Xiyu, your foundational base is still considered a perfect one, Lu Chongsheng reassured her. I wonder if my yin-yang energies can repair this crack. Lu Chongsheng, observing the obvious crack on the foundation base, thought of his yin-yang energies. It seemed somewhat fortuitous in his heart. He had just condensed the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base. The yin-yang energies of the foundational base could repair and refine the base. And now, the exact problem Xianxia's base had was a crack in her perfect foundation, not an innate flaw. Don't worry, just complete your rebirth and solidify your cultivation level. I have a way to repair your foundation. Lu Chongsheng withdrew his divine sense, exhaling gently and saying to Xianxia. Using yin-yang energies to repair and refine a foundational base was his secret, not to be divulged to outsiders. But as Xianxia was his consort, Lu Chongsheng naturally would not keep it concealed. Moreover, he was eager to see how effective his yin-yang energies were. Repair the foundational base? Xianxia's typically cold and pale face showed a trace of surprise. She did not expect Lu Chongsheng to say he could repair her foundational base. She was clearly aware that the heaven and earth treasures capable of fixing a foundational base were exceedingly rare. Furthermore, her foundation base was a perfect one, cracked due to flaws in her state of mind and cultivation technique, making it incredibly difficult to mend. But at that moment, as her foundational base pulsated within her body, undergoing transformation, she didn't give it much thought and simply nodded slightly, collecting her mental spirit and closed her eyes again to begin the marrow cleansing after the consolidation of the foundation base and her rebirth. Seeing Xianxia closing her eyes again, Lu Chongqing started to regulate his breath in meditation, solidifying his cultivation level. At the time, he had just had a breakthrough, and due to Xianxia's situation, he had been too preoccupied to solidify his cultivation level. So the cave dwelling returned to a state of silence. In the blink of an eye, half a month went by. Phew! Lu Chongqing opened his eyes and exhaled lightly. Having solidified his cultivation level over half a month, he felt his aura become calm and settled. After his breakthrough to the foundation establishment stage, not only his cultivation level but also his physical body and presence had become more easily concealed. Unless he engaged in battle, it would be difficult for others to discern his level. Could this jade pendant be a unique treasure after all? That it can prevent even a foundation establishment cultivator from discerning the depth at a glance. As Lu Chongqing observed his own aura, he discovered that the jade pendant given to him by that nascent soul female cultivator still had the effect of concealing his aura, to the point that he himself couldn't fully discern it. Now that I have established my foundation, if I wanted, I could probably go live off a woman's resources. Chapter 315, The Idea of Establishing One's Own Family. Lu Chongqing chuckled inwardly. He remembered that after he achieved the foundation establishment stage, the nascent soul female cultivator had said she would give him an opportunity. Although she hadn't specified what the opportunity was, he could guess its nature. However, Lu Chongqing had no such intentions in his heart. He, Lu Chongqing, had reached this point through his tireless efforts, day and night. Why would he cling to someone's coattails or live off others? Moreover, he was aware that, as a nascent soul immortal, she would definitely not bear his children. In such a case, one couldn't be as comfortable as when at home, with a wife and children around a warm stove. No, what sweeter is living off one's own efforts, step by step. System. Watching Xianxia still meditating with her eyes closed, Lu Chongqing silently uttered in his mind. A system interface appeared before his eyes. Name, Lu Chongqing. Status, son-in-law of the Lu family of Jianghu Mountain. Cultivation level, foundation establishment first layer, lifespan, 32/269, talent, 5th grade spiritual root, Gengjin body constitution, medium grade spiritual body, cultivation techniques, 100 refinements treasure body art, 7 luminaries great freedom sword scripture, yin-yang harmony technique, immortal beauty technique, spells, 7 luminaries sword light, 7 luminaries sword shield, 7 luminary sword escape, items, 9 treasure jade rui, golden light brick talisman treasure, black dragon magical bead, book of malevolent curses and fates, life substituting talisman, profound origin bead, 2nd rank puppet, skills, talisman making, 2nd rank, puppet, 2nd rank, spirit slaughterer, 2nd rank, spiritual pets, 9 netherhound, peach blossom goo, 6-winged golden silkworm, offspring, 115 of 117, lifespan has increased by 109 years. Is it because of the perfect foundation base? Lu Chongqing examined the changes in his lifespan record. Normally, breaking through from energy refinement to foundation establishment increases one's lifespan by 100 years. This lifespan can fluctuate according to the cultivation method practiced or the condition of the body. For someone like him, practicing a sword scripture and having increased his lifespan by 109 years upon breaking through to foundation establishment, is already quite exceptional. At the age of 32, although not the pinnacle, foundation establishment is still the first step on the ladder. However, I should still keep my cultivation level hidden from the public eye as much as possible and bide my time for some years. Otherwise, as a mere 9th grade spiritual root son-in-law of the Lu family, having reached foundation establishment at 32, I will surely attract the wrong kind of attention and trouble. Lu Chongqing murmured to himself, considering his current age. In the cultivation world, there's never a shortage of lucky ones who get an opportunity and manage to reach foundation establishment by chance. However, such lucky ones do not necessarily continue to be fortunate. Once his cultivation level is exposed, there's a high chance of attracting trouble. Therefore, unless necessary, Lu Chongsheng plans to maintain the appearance of an energy-refining cultivator. Regarding children, I've fallen behind over the years, I need to catch up earnestly now. Lu Chongsheng then turned his attention to his offspring record. In the last few years, due to various reasons such as outstanding childbirth and Xiaoxia's cultivation, childbearing was delayed, increasing the count by only 11 children. And my children are growing up and need to start cultivating, so I should really focus on that. Lu Chongsheng thought about his eldest son, Lu Xianxia, who had already completed taking in qi. Initially, he had put some thought into Lu Xianxia. But as the number of children increased and he became busier, he barely provided guidance. For instance, he wouldn't have known about Lu Xianxia completing the qi intake if not for the system notification. With a thought, Lu Xianxi's information appeared. Name, Lu Xianxia, lifespan, December 89, talent, 9th grade spiritual root, cultivation level, qi refinement first layer, alas, 9th grade spiritual root. Lu Chongsheng sighed softly upon seeing his son's spiritual root grade. As someone who had risen from a 9th grade to a 5th grade spiritual root, he understood the gap between the different grades of spiritual roots only too well. His son, without significant opportunities, had little chance past energy refinement late stage. But being my son is a great opportunity in itself. Once I possess the strength to establish my own family spirit land, with the heavenly longevity technique, even core formation or nascent soul stages are within reach. Lu Chongsheng exhaled lightly. He again considered the matter of establishing his own family. Having spent so many years on Jianghu mountain, and with a wife and children, he certainly felt somewhat at home there. Indeed, he counted Jianghu mountain as half his home. However, he never ceased to consider establishing his own cultivation family independently. After all, Lu Chongsheng never truly considered himself entirely a part of the Lu family, he merely saw Jianghu mountain as half his home. Therefore, his children, as per his arrangements, hadn't completely integrated into the Lu family either. Because Lu Chongsheng was acutely aware that in the future, he and his children were destined to walk a path different from the Lu families. If he remained with the Lu family, as his strength increased, he would probably become the Lu family ancestor and take control of the family. But Lu Chongsheng had no such wish. Becoming the Lu family ancestor and taking charge would mean assuming a responsibility. And he didn't want to shoulder that responsibility. His own children, he was willing to put in the effort, energy, and resources to cultivate each one of them. Even if they had 9th grade spiritual roots, he was willing to spend the time, energy, and resources. But he couldn't possibly do the same for the Lu family disciples. And if he stayed with the Lu family, becoming their ancestor, he couldn't simply ignore family matters. So, in Lu Chongsheng's view, taking his children to establish their own family clan was the best choice. He wouldn't forget about the Lu family either. Once capable, he would provide whatever assistance he could afford to help them. After all, a favor of a drop of water should be repaid with a spring of water. Moreover, considering his current relationship with the Lu family, it was impossible for him to sever ties completely. Chapter 316, Family Spirit Land, Repair the Dao Foundation. _1 Now that I've achieved foundation establishment, I can consider establishing a family clan. Lu Chongsheng's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts about establishing a family clan. In the world of cultivation, the strength of foundation establishment couldn't be considered very high. However, it was enough to preside over a region and establish a cultivation family. As with the Lu family of Jianghu Mountain and many surrounding families, once foundation establishment was achieved, one would become the ancestral elder of the family. To establish a cultivation family, the first thing needed is a spiritual vein blessed land. Without a spirit land, talking about establishing a family is nothing but a joke. Over the years, Lu Chongsheng had learned quite a bit about family affairs. He knew a few basic ways to acquire a spirit land. The first method was the simplest and most direct. It was to seize and occupy others' spirit lands by force. This kind of thing was not uncommon in the cultivation world. However, few who chose to establish family forces did so. One reason was, if not done thoroughly, it left the possibility of future troubles. Another was that seizing spirit lands without cause and establishing a family greatly affected one's reputation and credibility. And morally it was indefensible, easily drawing the condemnation and even aggression from other cultivators and forces. After all, if you are alone, you can disregard the rules. But when you establish a family and have dependents, you need to consider your reputation and the family standing. If you act without rules and are too overbearing, leading to a poor reputation, it's not only likely to cause trouble, but also could result in other cultivators and family forces being unwilling to associate with you. In the cultivation world, most who choose to establish family forces do so because they have no hope in cultivation. Therefore, they transfer their time and energy to cultivating successors, aiming for the stable development of the family's foundation. If a family force is established through forceful occupation and as a result gains a bad reputation, it is bound to hinder the family's development. For instance, when the Lu family and the Bai family attacked Red Leaf Valley, they had a justified cause, holding grievances that stretched over decades. The Yu family and the Zheng family would also find a reason or pretext when they came to take their share. Therefore, seizing others' spirit lands by force was not considered by Lu Chongsheng. He couldn't bring himself to seize others' spirit lands without reason. Of course, if any thoughtless family offended him and forced his hand, he wouldn't mind doing so. The second way to obtain a spirit land was to clear and develop it oneself. Although spirit veins were scarce in the cultivation world, it was still possible to find some unclaimed ones. However, most such spirit veins were located in places with poor terrain or harsh environments. Or they were surrounded by numerous and very dangerous demon beasts. So if one was willing to spend time and effort, it was still possible to find a spirit vein and cultivate it into a spirit land. But this option, too, was not considered by Lu Chongsheng. First of all, he had a general idea about the future development of his family. With his puppets, talisman making, spirit slaughterer, and skills obtained from future draws, he intended to train his children in artisanal trades. By mastering these skills, his family would have a stable source of income. Therefore, he had certain requirements for the geographical environment. If the environment was too remote or too poor, and there were too few cultivators and marketplaces around, it would definitely be inconvenient for doing business. Secondly, to find a suitable spirit vein and to develop it into a spirit land would also require a great deal of time and effort. It could take many years or even decades. So this path was completely out of Lu Chongsheng's consideration. The third way was to purchase or rent a spirit land with money. Some cultivation families, facing decline or a break in lineage, would choose to sell or almost give away their family spirit lands. However, such spirit lands were usually not of high quality. If Lu Chongsheng were willing, he could easily take over a first-grade spirit vein. But to cultivate a first-grade spirit vein into a second-grade would consume too much time and resources, so it was not considered by Lu Chongsheng. Immortal sects like Heavenly Sword Sect, Qingyun Sect, Wuxia Sect, and Spirit Taming Sect all had several second-grade spiritual vein dojos with excellent environment and geographical location. These spirit lands, besides being used to establish cultivation marketplaces, also had some available for rent or sale. If I could purchase a spirit land within the jurisdiction of Qingyun Sect, that would be a fine choice. However, most of these spiritual vein dojos are only rented out, seldom sold. Even when they are up for sale, not everyone is qualified to buy them. Moreover, the price of a spiritual vein dojo is astronomically high, beyond what I can currently afford. Lu Chongsheng shook his head slightly, not dwelling on this matter. With his current worth, it wasn't easy to establish a family clan from nothing. After all, a family clan is something that accumulates over generations. If he wanted to complete in a short time what others have achieved over several generations, it would naturally cost him exponentially more. However, he wasn't in a hurry to establish a family clan. He planned to wait until his children were older. The most urgent task at hand is to accumulate a foundation. In a few years, when I can reasonably reveal my strength at foundation establishment, they'll consider the matter of establishing a family clan. By that time, my 100 or so children should have grown up and will be able to share the burdens of this old father. Otherwise, even with a family spirit land and the establishment of my own family, I would be faced with a lack of manpower and would need to do everything personally. Lu Chongsheng was very clear in his heart. To establish a family clan, a spirit land was only the basic condition. With the spirit land secured, one would at least need a family great formation, right? Such large-scale formations couldn't be managed with just a set of formation tools. Chapter 317, Family Spirit Land, Repair the Dao Foundation. An array master is necessary for the setup. As for the great formation of his own family, Lu Chongsheng truly did not feel assured to let others handle its arrangement. Moreover, such large-scale formations, even ordinary second-rank formations, are exceedingly expensive. With the formation's protection, it's necessary to sort the earth veins, develop the spirit fields, and the medicinal fields. Then planting the spiritual medicines in the spirit fields, the envisioned puppet factory, nurturing spiritual beasts, all require substantial financial investment and people to do the work. It's feasible to recruit outsiders, servants, to work. But core matters must be kept in the hands of our own people. At present, aside from his wives and concubines, his eldest son, Lu Pingon, is only 13 years old. And since Lu Pingon does not have a spiritual root, he cannot do many things, which must be done only by offspring with spiritual roots. Lu Chongsheng was very clear about all this in his heart. He knew that establishing a family from nothing, regardless of the cost, or human and mental effort, would be tremendous and require extensive preparation. Even with a system at his disposal, it wouldn't be easy for one person to traverse in a few years or over a decade what others take over 100 years to accomplish. However, had it not been for the blessings of many children granted by the system, Lu Chongsheng would not have even thought about establishing a family. After all, creating a family is like planting trees for future generations to enjoy the shade. In the early stages, it's all toil with little return. Moreover, most often, the founders don't live to see the benefits and conveniences of the family. However, for me, it's just about getting through the initial stage, he said to himself. After all, as long as the children are well, this father will be content. Once the family gets on the right track and carries on from generation to generation, this old father, this ancestor, can also relax and live leisurely. Lu Chongsheng was also aware that he differed from other family founders. Most of them turned to building a family only when they saw no hope in cultivation. Whereas his focus was on stability and a promising future where every effort would be rewarded. At this moment, Lu Chongsheng turned to look at Xianxia, whose eyelashes trembled slightly as her eyes slowly opened. He immediately asked with concern, "Xiyu, you're awake?" Chongsheng. Xianxia had a breakthrough in her foundation establishment, completing a metamorphosis. Her skin, previously as pure as ice and snow, now seemed to flow with faint moonlight, making her entire person appear even more coldly sacred and pure. Supreme Forgetful Love Technique, First Level, Yun Wuqing, Wer Wuqing. Looking at Lu Chongsheng in front of her, Xianxia had complicated feelings. Initially, she thought that Yun stood for men and Yu for women. Clouds and moon sit millions of miles apart, unrelated to each other, so clouds are heartless, and so is the moon. But her master, Yun Wanshang, told her that clouds carry the light of the moon and cast the reflection of colorful clouds on the earth. To those on earth, it seemed as if the moon rested in the clouds, with the clouds embracing the moon, coexisting in interdependence. Thus, supreme forgetful love means one must experience emotion to reach heartlessness. However, with her breakthrough in the supreme forgetful love technique, she gained new insight. Clouds and moon intertwined, with the clouds surrounding the moon and the moon illuminating the clouds, both distant and close. One cold and quiet, the other ethereal and unpredictable, both heartless by nature, hence cloud heartless, moon heartless. It turns out I was wrong from the beginning, and so was Master, Xianxia murmured to herself. From the start of their cultivation, both she and Lu Changsheng had no emotions. That is, they had desire but no feelings, aligning with the state of cloud heartless, moon heartless. But as her cultivation progressed, she became increasingly entangled, possessed by both desire and emotions. Although it was a mistake, she also knew that supreme forgetful love, in the end, is all about being heartless, without emotions, cutting away those threads of sentiment. So, when together with Lu Changsheng, they had both desire and emotion. When alone, she would cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique to achieve a state of no desire, no emotions. Yet during the impact of foundation establishment, she was ultimately unable to sever her emotions completely and achieve heartlessness. But because Lu Changsheng was by her side, she had both desire and emotions when it mattered, and in the end, she succeeded in her foundation establishment, though her Tao foundation was damaged. So what does the second level mean with its cloud has sentiment, and moon has sentiment? Xianxia thought about the state of mind necessary for the second level of the supreme forgetful love technique. This related to whether she could reach core formation. Although her Tao foundation was damaged, with cracks making core formation seem distant, she was not going to give up on herself. Xiyu, how are you feeling? Are you alright? Lu Changsheng looked at Xianxia, who had just opened her eyes, then stared blankly at him, and he inquired. I'm fine, Xianxia replied, shaking her head lightly. She could feel that whenever she faced Lu Changsheng, her state of mind couldn't truly achieve calmness, supreme forgetful love. Then, with a wave of her hand, she clothed herself in moon-white lingerie, undergarments, and a skirt. Despite their intimacy. But the thought of her own breakthrough process, having been undressed the entire time, made Xianxia somewhat shy. Xiyu, now that you're fine, let's see if I can repair your Tao foundation, Lu Changsheng said, looking at Xianxia, who had donned her skirt, her long hair casually falling down to her waist, the contrast of black and white naturally bearing a celestial essence without any pretense. Repair Tao foundation? Xianxia looked towards Lu Changsheng, still somewhat incredulous. After all, such a notion was astounding. Yes, the Tao foundation I gathered during foundation establishment is called the Yin-Yang 5 Elements Foundation Base, and this Yin-Yang Qi. Lu Changsheng did not conceal anything and revealed the effect of his Tao foundation to Xianxia. Upon hearing this, Xianxia's beautiful eyes showed a hint of surprise, seemingly astonished that such a foundation base existed. At the same time, her creamy cheeks instantly flushed a shade of red. She had read many books about foundation establishment. She knew about many perfect foundations. But she had never heard of such a foundation as Lu Changsheng's. Putting aside the fact that the effects of this foundation were too extraordinary. The method of repairing the foundation, which required dual cultivation, made her feel as if Lu Changsheng was pulling a fast one on her. Xiyu, don't you trust me? Looking at Xianxia's silence, her cold eyes displaying a touch of disbelief, Lu Changsheng immediately spoke up.